Good evening. I would like to call to order this special meeting of the Encinitas City Council for Wednesday, January 10th, 2024 at 6 p.m. And would the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, and before I call roll, I'm just going to note that Councilmember Ehlers is participating via teleconference from the Dominican Republic as posted on the agenda. Councilmember Lyons?
Present.
Councilmember Ehlers?
Here.
Councilmember Hinsey?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Blackwell?
Here.
Mayor Kranz?
Here.
Record will show that all members of the City Council are present.
And just a quick explanation, we traditionally do not meet our regular meetings on this particular second Wednesday of January as part of the holiday break. As soon as we approved our schedule for this year, which included no regular meeting, we decided to have a special meeting, and so that's what we are having tonight. There's not much difference between a special and a regular, other than the fact that there isn't oral communication prior to getting into the agenda. So all oral communication tonight will be on agenda items, not any oral communication on non-agenda items. So with that, we'll get right into the agenda items, and with number one, we are going to be discussing design and plans for safety enhancement projects for bicycle facilities. And as you may recall, we did introduce this subject back on December 13th, I believe it was, and we decided to, because it was late at night, circle back and have this conversation a little bit earlier in the meeting, and so here we are. With that, I will turn it over to the city traffic engineer, Abe Bandigan, and his team, well, led by Jill Bankston, the city engineer.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, members of public. Abe Bannigan, City Traffic Engineer. Presenting the first item tonight, safety enhancements for bicycle facilities. This, as Mayor mentioned, this was presented, so I go a little quicker, save some time. Local emergency resolution was passed in June last year. We took some immediate actions. 300 yard signs were installed around the city. We added 20 changeable message board signs at various locations around school, high volume, high traffic locations. We did a new comprehensive education webpage for on the city website for educating various users of our bicycle facilities. And we quickly evaluated the city's infrastructure to identify quick improvement and enhancement opportunities. In September last year, City Council reviewed what we had done and provided us some new directions, additional web content, evaluating additional capital project options, and gave us 3 months to evaluate these options and do a preliminary design and come to council for potential implementation. This was the list that was initially presented to City Council, various projects that were identified when we did a quick sweep of the city's bicycle infrastructure to see what we can do at different locations with different types of improvements. Majority of these are in vicinity of the schools. Different categories of projects. There were new Class 2 bike lanes that were identified. There were some streets that had the potential to add new bike lanes on them, such as Saxony, Westlake, Village Parkway, between the two bounds that you can see on the slide. One of these, as an example, these were attached to the council report, different designs for each one of these roadway segments. A sample Village Parkway, this is how it looks now. As you can see, very wide travel lanes. When we came to council, we presented a sample cross-section that can narrow down the lanes and add a bike lane and a buffer and then still keep the parking lane. This was blessed, and this is the new design, part of the design that we will be implementing, obviously pending council approval tonight. and similarly at other locations. This was another measure that we initially proposed to council, a two-stage bike box that would help safer left turns for bicyclists. Locations were identified initially to implement a enhanced left turn for bicyclists. As you can see on this slide, there were various intersections that we thought this could be beneficial to. However, after multiple meetings we had with Bike Walk Encinitas, and also researches that we did for these examples in other cities and other regions, we do like to only test this if council blesses this at only one location to see how it works out. A short video that shows how these two-stage bike boxes
Two-stage
operate.
left turn boxes provide an easy, safe way for people on bikes to make left turns on busier streets. They are painted green boxes on the pavement where you can wait out of the path of traffic to complete your left turn. To use the box, if you're riding a bike and want to make a left turn, on a green light you should go straight through the intersection and into the box. Turn your bike to the left, then wait for the light to turn green or wait for the all-walk signal and ride through the intersection. If you use the all-walk signal, please be sure to yield to pedestrians. Two-stage left.
So basically, the reason it's called two stages, you follow the vehicles with their green, you don't turn left where you intend to go. You continue, you cross the intersection. On the other side, you stay on this green box and wait for the vehicles in the opposite, in the other direction, basically, and then you follow them, parallel to them, basically go to your originally intended direction. So that's why it's called a two-stage. So out of the different intersections, there are concerns that has to be mentioned. The most concern is wherever you add a bike box, a two-stage bike box, you have to eliminate the right turn. So this is the location that we thought might be a good location for a pilot, Encinitas on Vulcan. So if a biker, this is for northbound left turn bikers. So if a biker is coming from the City Hall, for example, northbound, they get to the intersection and they want to turn left toward 101, they would have to cross the intersection, go to the northeast corner with the green for northbound Vulcan. Then they wait here, wait for westbound Encinitas Boulevard, and when westbound Encinitas Boulevard gets its green, they continue going west. Now what happens is because of this, the location of this box, the westbound free right turn, that would be eliminated. So vehicles that are on westbound, if this to be implemented, there will be a no turn on red for the westbound right turn, which would have some impacts on.
Now, what happens is
There's some echo. So the westbound right turn would be eliminated. Is there a way?
Maybe Bruce can mute his phone while he's listening along.
I just muted. I had dropped, and I'm listening on the live feed, so I will mute in the meantime.
So another concern would be that this bike box is on the pavement, so the location of it is adjusted in a way that is not in the path of travel of the vehicles. So a northbound vehicle going north, when this bicyclist is waiting here, it is not in the path of travel of the northbound vehicles. Similarly, with the westbound vehicles, when this bicyclist is trying to go westbound, they're not in the path of the westbound vehicles, but it's still on the pavement. So when they're waiting, they are waiting on the pavement in an unprotected area. So the design can be made in a way that there's like minimal conflict or absolutely no conflict between the vehicles and the bicyclists as they're waiting, but any kind of mistake that happens by any bicyclist or a vehicle can put the bicyclist in a unwanted situation. But that again, as said, this is only one location that we think we can implement a pilot. We are asking council to let us, if it is to be done, leave the other locations for now for a future date. Another category of projects, bike lane buffers, simple narrowing down travel lanes, addition of buffer where there's just a bike lane now with no existing buffer. Various locations, Manchester, Garden View, El Camino Real. Another example, Garden View right now, relatively wide lanes, bike lane with no buffer. We presented this cross section, narrower lanes with a new added buffer, And this is the design that we presented to council. There are similar designs for other roadways too. Sharrow markings, implementation of sharrows at locations where we don't have enough room to add a dedicated bike lane, but we have enough bicycling activity or its vicinity of a school or somewhere that we felt it can be beneficial to add sharrows. It does meet our sharrow policy that will be presented to council at a later item tonight, but it does meet our policy. Another item that's new to the city, well, not new, we have one of these right now, the cross bike at intersections. This is basically a parallel crossing for bicyclists parallel to an existing crosswalk. We just recently, a couple of months ago, did a cross bike at Chesterfield intersection crossing over 101, as you can see in the left picture. Bicyclists would have their own dedicated path. They don't need to use the crosswalk because in a crosswalk they have to walk their bike, but in a cross bike they can just continue riding their bike. Another example on the right in city of Davis. So these are 3 locations that we can implement these. This one is another example at intersection of Ballure, westbound Encinitas Boulevard. If they want to go toward Oakcrest or inside Ballure, turn westbound left turn, they'd be able to get out of the travel way. There is a landing area. There is a push button for bicyclists. They push a button, they wait for their own crossing time. So this is the existing crosswalk. The cross bike would basically go here, and they'll have a landing. So there will be a curb cut here on the north side, and they'll wait there with a new push button, and they'll be able to cross. Additional signage around the schools, different roadways that can benefit from additional signage. So we have the original list that was presented to council with a more accurate cost estimate, hopefully accurate with the prices going up. We don't know what kind of bids we'll get, but this is a more accurate cost estimate based on a more accurate design right now, $620,000. But this should be noted that this is without a slurry seal, meaning the existing striping on the roadway, whatever it is, will be blacked out. The picture on the right shows Vulcan. There were all the striping, as you can see, the 2 edge lines and the center line were blacked out, and we added new striping. It's not very aesthetically pleasing per se, but it's very, very, compared to the slurry option, a lot more, less cost prohibitive, I would say. Slurry, obviously, a clean slate, clean canvas, the roadway would look a lot better and will add to the life of the road. So one thing should be noted is that all these improvements, we will work with our mobility manager to add the educational component to all these that is needed. Many of these, I mean, the buffers are obviously always, people are familiar with what they are. New bike lanes, people know, but there are features here. If we do the 2-stage, if we do the cross bikes, all these additional elements that we're introducing with this, we'll make sure that we do as much as we can for our educational campaign, and our students, our residents, everybody basically knows how to utilize these potential new facilities. Thank you. I'm open to questions.
Okay, very good. Appreciate the presentation. And does the council have any preliminary questions before we hear from the public? Bruce? Nothing. Okay, we hear from the speakers.
We do have 2 speakers on this item. Megan Reichhuber, followed by Michael von Neumann, and then Glenn Johnson is in support of the recommended action but does not wish to speak. Oh, and then also Tom Bertolus. So Megan? What is that? What is that?
Good evening, Mayor Kranz, Deputy Mayor Blackwell, and members of the City Council. My name is Megan Reichhuber. I am a 13-year-old 7th grade student who attends Phoenix Learning Center located on West Lake Street here in Encinitas. I am here today to talk to you about a huge issue with today's society, local biker and pedestrian safety. After noticing the high population of bikers and e-bikers in our community, along with having countless close friends and family members who bike or e-bike very often, I knew I wanted to do something to help protect them. Additionally, when I heard about many local accidents, such as the woman in Carlsbad who was tragically killed by a car on her e-bike, leaving her 18-month-old infant to be left without a mother, my heart sank. Having lost my own father very unexpectedly when I was only 10 years old, I really related to the pain this innocent family would now have to experience for the rest of their lives. Thinking of my own pain, I knew I never wanted anyone else to experience anything remotely close to this heartbreaking feeling, which is why I would love to tell you my idea to help prevent this. In order to achieve my school project's requirements as well as my Girl Scout Silver Award, I am asked to create something with a sustainable, lasting impact to help solve an issue in my community. Having personally witnessed so many close calls with e-bike and car collisions, I began researching farther and discovered just how real of a problem this issue is. Going back to my school, located very close to other schools, including SDA, Pacific Academy, Rhodes, St. John's, and more, I narrowed down the options and decided exactly what I wanted to do for part of my project. I would like to ask you all for permission to work with the City of Encinitas in order to build and install a permanent and therefore sustainable sign instructing drivers to be cautious of pedestrians and bikers on Westlake Street here in Encinitas. In specific, Westlake Street has countless bikers and pedestrians all throughout the day going to schools, businesses, and other local areas, along with drivers going to schools, businesses, and even the main 5 highway. Therefore, I would love to help protect all of these people with the installation of this sign. Though it may not seem like a lot, I've learned from personal experience that even the loss of one singular life permanently alters many people. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Next is Michael von Neumann, followed by Tom Bertalis, and then Christine Schindler.
Well, while this is going on, I just want to wish everybody a Happy New Year. My name is Michael von Neumann. I live in Encinitas, and I have 3 things. I have some likes about this item. I have some suggestions about this item, and also some questions. First of all, I really like looking at the plans that there is no thermoplastic bicycle signs in Class 2 bike lanes. That's very, very good, because that eliminates a potential hazard when they get wet for bicycles to slip on them. So that's really good. I also like the bike lanes, the buffers, and the narrower travel lanes on Village Parkway. That is my neighborhood, and I've looked at that ever since I lived here and wonder, why are there no bike lanes going to the middle school? So that's excellent. Also like the bike lane buffers on Manchester, narrowing travel lanes on South El Camino Real between Encinitas Boulevard and Santa Fe. Excellent idea. As to my suggestions, slurry seal, spend the money, slurry seal whenever possible before restriping, because it makes the new restriping a lot more noticeable and it gets the attention of the motorists. Also, apply what I call BIMUFL, or bicycles may use full lane markings, when the sharrows are on the road, like on Requesa and Nardo. Putting signs on a pole off of the road is old school engineering, in my opinion. You need to put it right in front of the motorists so they can see it. Also, my big question after reviewing all this was, why no slurry sealing and lane narrowing on South El Camino Real between Santa Fe and Calle Ryan and between Tennis Club Drive and the intersection with Manchester? If you're doing it between Encinitas Boulevard up to Santa Fe, why stop there? Thank you.
Tom? Then he will be followed by Christine Schindler.
Hello, everybody. Hi, everybody. That was my first time here, so I had to look around for a second. Hi, I'm Tom Bertulis. I'm relatively new to Encinitas. I've lived here 4 years, and people have lived here a lot longer than me, so be cognizant of that. I'm hopeful here tonight. Hope is that, as Emily Dickinson once said, hope is that thing with feathers that perches on the soul. And I'm hopeful too, this bicycle emergency. I, like a feather, bicycle emergency is layered. And so I'm not going to go into all the layers of my opinion, but I want to express gratitude and hope. I come here, I moved here from Boston, and when I lived there for 8 years, they implemented NACTO-style infrastructure, exactly what Abe referred to. And they reduced the traffic fatalities for bicyclists by over 50%. So that brings me hope. So I basically have gratitude for Abe for all his efforts. I'm really impressed with this city. Gratitude for the city council and Mayor Kranz. I see Mayor Kranz on his bicycle, and just makes me happy. And I hear rumblings from, as we all do, this seems like a tame night. But, you know, as poet John Lingate once said, you can only make some of the people happy some of the time. So thank you for making us happy. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. Christine Schindler, East Encinitas. Very happy to be here that this was scheduled again and not pushed off into a later date. Very supportive of the safety enhancement program, the work that Abe and others have been doing. Certainly, there's a lot of good things in the plan that I'm in support of. Anytime we can get new bike lanes and kind of redesignate some space on the roadway, to include space for cars and bicycles, that's a good thing. Increasing more space, putting buffers on, that's also a very good thing. So happy to see those kind of proposals and hope that you'll be in support of them. Cross bike is a new concept. We have a new law in place now, AB 1909, which essentially allows bike riders to cross when peds are given a walk signal. So cross bikes just bring even more attention to that, more visibility to that alternative. The places where they've been proposed are in critical intersections that have multiple lanes to cross in order to make a left turn. And so it's giving an alternative to either slower riders, maybe younger riders, less experienced riders. It gives them another way to make a left turn, possibly in a safer manner. So that's what we're hoping for with these cross bikes that are mainly in school areas. And I'm definitely in support of that. I do think that we need to do education around it. So I know that the city is working on some videos for bike safe, drive safe. And so certainly I think having some about cross bikes and how to use them, also having some videos about right hook conflicts with cars and bikes and left cross potential intersections where we have potential for collisions. And we want to make everybody hyper aware. I hope that we'll have videos to come for those. We also, I just wanted to mention, it's not really in this, but we do also have another new law about daylighting intersections. So essentially, I hope that we'll do a video about that as well. So that's opening up vision, sight lines around intersections near crosswalks so that you don't have parked cars kind of interfering with bikes and motorists and pedestrians being able to see each other and react to each other. So really happy about everything I'm seeing. Whenever we can do traffic calming, bring down speeds, and make for safer interactions between all road users, I'm in support of that. So I'm cheering Abe and others on. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mayor, that does conclude speakers on this item.
Okay, appreciate hearing from everybody, and especially the younger crowd. Good to have you here. Thank you. Councilmember Hinsey.
Thank you. Thank you, Abe, for all your hard work, and I'll try to keep my comments short because I think last time I talked too long and I shut the meeting down till the new year. So I think the main thing that I wanted to communicate is that this is a package of really well done striping improvements. I think they're meaningful. I think they're properly placed in the places where we need them most. And so I support 95% of what you're proposing tonight. Over the break, I did a little bit of education. The folks from Bike Walk Encinitas educated me on the differences between the bike boxes and the two-stage left turn boxes. And due to that education, I think we should keep from going forward with those improvements at this time. I know we just have the one intersection we're considering right now for the pilot. I think what we should do instead is take their recommendations. They put together a really great public comment that it was part of our package. It very clearly lays out what they're asking for, and I support items 1 through 3 and number 5. Number 4, I think Michael von Neumann should weigh in on that one because I don't know the right treatment. But basically what they're asking for is that we change the geometry of our intersections prior to implementing the green two-stage left turn boxes so that we can stripe back the crosswalks and leave room so that the biker that's waiting to make that turn isn't put so close to the cars or out in the intersection, because I think we are going to expect to see a lot of kids using these. Probably they'll be educated in their classes, so they'll be the ones that know how to do it. And I just hesitate to go forward and slap one down without making all of the proper changes to that intersection in advance. So something that we started doing when you joined us, Abe, was just making it part of our review every year for our annual pavement rehab. Was to bring the lanes down to the 10-foot or as small as we possibly can. And we just have that now as part of our protocol, and we're always looking for these opportunities. So my suggestion is that we add all of our intersections to that review as well. And when there is the opportunity to make these modifications to prepare for the eventuality that we probably will have bike boxes and two-stage left turn lanes, that we're getting ready for that now. And so that's the main thing that I just wanted to tease out. I had a few questions. Let's see, what's important? One other important thing to me, which also was mentioned in the Bike Walk Encinitas letter, is that we reserve part of our Safe Routes to School fund for the Pawlicki Central project that we've all been working on, so that we can not have to wait for the next fiscal year to do that. And so maybe there's some cost savings with the little bit of green paint we're not using for the bike boxes. Let's see. So there was support in the last meeting for the Willow Spring bike lanes. Did we consider parking protected bike lanes there instead of buffered bike lanes? Is that a possibility with the width we have?
Is this the Village Parkway, you mean? Or,
I think
or
it's
Willow Spring? Because here we don't have Willow Spring.
with
the
Village
bike
Parkway
lane.
then,
Yeah.
the entrance to Degano.
So the narrow piece in front of the school obviously doesn't have room for protection, but the wider piece between Mountain Vista, we did do not just for that, but also for El Camino and Manchester a cost estimate for a class 4. Both are feasible, one-sided or double-sided. Why doesn't this open? Yeah, it's no. Huh.
We can come back to that question if it's going to take a little while. Let's come back to it, Abe.
I can give you. Let me see if I remember. I think the length was about 1,500 feet, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I don't want to quote. So the length about every 1,000 feet of protected, we did an average based on our recent cycle track project. If we do a one-sided protection like the new area of cycle track where there's only one row of bollards and wheel stops, for every 1,000 feet, we'll be spending an additional $20,000 to $25,000 to make a bike lane protected.
I see.
So that's our average cost. Now,
So it's a
depending on the
cost
length.
consideration at this time.
Correct. So it is feasible because usually where you have so many driveways and intersecting roads, it makes it infeasible to make it protected. You will have so many openings. The good thing with this Village Park area and obviously on our El Camino Manchester corridor, we have very minimal intersections, so protection is possible. It's just for El Camino, I remember the cost was somewhere between 500 to 600,000 one-sided. If we do a two-way for El Camino south of Encinitas Boulevard, basically the whole segment of Encinitas and Manchester, it would be an additional 600,000 for one-sided. For Village Park, it would be obviously a lot smaller, maybe 50K or 60K or something.
Okay. Well, I just want to state for the record that I think you know that that's the goal that we have for Manchester, and I think that there are some other opportunities here, like Quail Gardens Drive, even for a protected bike lane. It seems like there's the width that's where we want to get eventually, so that, you know, whether it's grants or through savings or whatever revenue we're able to come upon, that should be our goal for these areas where we do have the width and there are fewer driveways, and I think we should really aim to get there. Let's see. I had a question. I didn't see the plans for the Westlake striping.
Yes, good catch. So Westlake, the good thing is it's on, as you just mentioned, it's on the list for this year's city's pavement rehab project. So it will be covered with our city's pavement project. It's that we don't need the funding from council for this one because we are repaving that road with our annual pavement project. So we are repaving it the way we like with the new striping.
Okay, that's great news. And then will the bike lane include the elimination of parking in the areas where the width isn't enough?
Correct. A small area that currently has parking will be removed.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. And then let's see. I love the cross bikes, and there are a few recommendations in the bike walk letter for additional legs of cross bikes. So I hope we can consider those. If we don't need to talk about it right now in depth, but if you see those opportunities are possible, I support going ahead and striping those. And then with the Ballore intersection with Encinitas Boulevard, I have a concern about right-hand turns from Encinitas Boulevard onto Ballore. And now that we're going to be directing riders to do the cross bikes and make their way through that intersection, I'm wondering if it would be possible to create a more intentional right-hand turn and use like vertical deflectors somehow to protect bikers, so that while they're making that turn, it's got to be a really intentional turn for cars. They can't just whip around that corner really quickly.
We can look into it to see how we can modify that corner, or also see what kind of volume we're looking at. Maybe no turn on red is also an option.
Yeah, I would be supportive of that at that one intersection. Okay, and thank you to our public speakers. It's always so great to hear from you, and especially our younger ones, and such a heartfelt comment that you made, and thanks for taking the time to be here tonight and participate in the public process. And I do support the student's request if we can make her signage request possible. And that's all I've got. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I follow up on that. If you give your contact information to the city clerk, then staff will be in touch to see what your idea is and if we can implement it. Councilmember Lyons.
Thank you, Mayor. So I think really our challenge is what can we do with the amount of money we have? I think that when we look at this in phases, it's more doable, understanding what the long-term objectives are. So I appreciate breaking this down into what's the most important and how to move forward then. So having said that, I do appreciate the approach with a pilot project. so that we can understand, and I think this is what is meant by a pilot project, we observe how it's used, and we observe what opportunities, what issues, what's happening, and how to then move forward with a decision about other bike boxes in the future. So given that, I have a couple questions. When you're talking about bike boxes, and I hear Councilmember Hinsey saying, well, maybe our crosswalks aren't in the right places yet for the bike boxes to be located correctly for the most effectiveness and the best safety. Could you tell me what the ideal location? I've gone through these, and is there a way of explaining what the ideal location is? I see that, I'm just looking at what page is this? It's page 8 of 31, which is the intersection of Encinitas Boulevard and Via Cantabria, which is an intersection El Camino Real. This is El Camino Real. It looks like the bike boxes are located in very different places throughout the intersection. Could you explain what is ideal?
Sure. Well, tough to say there is an ideal location where we're talking about the two-stage bike box because of the fact that bicyclists will be waiting for 10, 15, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, depending if it's a large intersection, maybe 40, 45 seconds on the surface of the street. So obviously this is not in any way ideal. Anybody, distracted driver, missing their path, making a wrong turn, this bicyclist is on the pavement. But obviously, like any other traffic design, we're looking for a location with minimal conflict. So the movement of crosswalk that was mentioned is by pushing back the crosswalk further out of the intersection. We're creating like this location that I have right now open. Let's say on the north leg, if this crosswalk, as you can see, the two-stage box is right now like half and half on the two crosswalks. If this crosswalk was further back and this crosswalk was further back, then we had this area, like let's say the existing crosswalk, that this box could be moved into and out of the travel way on this side and out of the travel way on this side. They're still in the path of a right turner. If a right turner doesn't see the sign, the no turn on red, they would basically run them over. Or if a northbound vehicle gets distracted, goes off their path, they might hit them because they're on the road. But they're not, absolutely not in the path of the westbound traffic, and they're out of the basically regular, usual path of travel for vehicles. That's the advantage of moving these crosswalks back. Now, as Councilmember Hensey mentioned, there is a lot of cost implication with these. Each crosswalk costs us somewhere between 10 to 20K, depending on the size of the intersection. All our traffic signal loops would have to be moved back because we have a lot of loops, as you've noticed, the detection loops. When the crosswalk goes back, all those loops would have to be cut. New pool boxes on the side. A lot of time these conduits don't work, so we have new. So there's a lot of, it's not just removing an existing crosswalk and moving. Many of the situations, there is a technical legal distance between a push button and a crosswalk entrance. When a crosswalk moves, if your push button is too far, you have to dig that push button out and move it to a location where it's, I think it's 5 feet or something. That's the maximum distance between a push button and an entrance. So all those new additional costs will be added. So that's something that we can certainly look at, but even with our annual pavement rehab to do this, because when we do striping with our annual pavement rehab, Councilmember Hensey, it's we're doing a striping one way or another. We can change the striping and the cost won't be much more. But to be able to incorporate something like this into our annual pavement rehab, it's tough to say. We can certainly think about it, but it's not as easy as just adding a bike lane buffer with the new annual pavement rehab.
Thank you for explaining that to me. So from the perspective of someone who's not a bicyclist, so I'm kind of just the average person, which is a different perspective, I think. Why then would we not just do or give me the pros and cons then of doing the cross bike in a situation like this along Vulcan and have the bicyclist stage or wait out of the travel lane? Would that be an option that might be considered so that they're not in the travel lane?
I mean, it would be a similar case as if we're moving back, because right now we don't have a location for a cross bike. The cross bike would be basically, if we were doing it over the north leg, it would be in the middle of the travel lane. There's no room for it in this existing setup. There's no landing site on the corner, on the northeast corner, and there's no crossing. So we would have to put the cross bike, basically it would be continuation of the existing bike lane. But there's still no landing area for the bicyclists.
Yeah, I guess
Whereas
these
if I-
are kind of a little schematic in that regard, that I'm not seeing exactly where that would need to go. Oh, there you go.
So this is a better example, like here, as you can see, the crosswalk is now behind because we didn't move the crosswalk here on Chesterfield. And I know it's your neighborhood, so you've probably noticed that recently we added a landing area right behind the signal mast arm here. So bicyclists, when they go north, they get out of the road. So this yellow truncated dome, now there is another landing area on this, just north of it. So they get out of the road, they stay here, they push a button, and they cross. Or here, the landing is just so big they can just land here. In our example of like Ballure, on that side, as you can see, the concrete area, we will cut the concrete, we will make it flush with the pavement. Bicyclists will go out of the road, get in there. There is a new short push button. They press it, they wait there. So they're not in the roadway, basically. That's, I guess the geometry is what mostly would allow cross bike, a good cross bike versus a two-stage.
Yeah, it seems to me to be a safer solution, and where we can manage to do that based on what the geometry currently is, seems like it would be the best way to go. Would you say that you've looked at these options with that in mind already? Or?
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
So all these locations in our initial September proposal were two-stage bike boxes. We did switch the ones that were feasible to cross bikes.
Okay. I did have a couple other questions. When we're talking about slurry sealing, you know, in my best world, it would be everywhere, because I agree with Tom that. Or Michael, I'm sorry, that it would be nice to have all the black asphalt of the slurry seal, but I know it's a cost factor. What happens if we go that direction? Then we'll actually be taking some of the projects that are on, I'm looking at you, Jill, because it has to do with our pavement index, where we classify which streets are in the highest need for the slurry seal or another approach to provide better integrity for the roadway surface. We have a hierarchy already. We already have some of that identified. Maybe some of these roads are pretty close to being on that list coming up anyway. Maybe those are the lower hanging fruit that it makes sense to go with a slurry seal. I'm throwing it out there as an idea of balancing the costs and what we can handle in our first phase.
So when we do slurry seals and we were looking at our pavement program, we're looking at a certain color of money. So it's our Transnet funds, it's our gas tax, it's our highway user tax account. So those are the funds that we put into our pavement management program and kind of figure out which are the projects that should be paved next. In this exercise, we were looking at where we could make the most impactful improvements to cycling. And so the optional slurry seal, that funding wouldn't come out of our annual paving funds. It would come out of our traffic engineering funds, basically. So it would clear out our general mobility and our safe routes to school budgets if we were able to do the slurry seal as projected on this chart.
Then that brings me to ask, do we have the money to do the slurry seal?
We can if the bids come in around where these numbers are. So if our bids come in higher, then we'll be looking for ways to trim scope or identify some additional funding sources.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Bruce, Councilmember Ehlers.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I think I have some very similar comments to Councilmember Lyons. I really prefer the cross bike. I've been watching many cyclists as they ride along in the bike lane and they cross the intersection, and they'll pull up on the sidewalk. So they switch from being a bicycle to a pedestrian momentarily, hit the button, and then they wait for the to walk across or ride across when the light changes. And I think the cross bike is a even better solution there. So I would support putting in cross bikes wherever possible, or reconfiguring so we could use the cross bike. The bike box, I support doing the pilot program. Option 2, I think, is the one I think that is being recommended right now with the one box. But I am very concerned about the no right turn on red and the impact to drivers and vehicle traffic and throughput. I'm worried about that. Second thing I'm very concerned is, I think Councilmember Lyons hit on this, is that the safety factor of bicycles waiting out in the intersection on the travel lane in a bike box concerns me. And I really like how the yellow landing area for a cross bike is out of the travel lane and very safe. And after all, I think that is our number one priority here, is what is the safest possible solution. And I think I heard discussion now that the cross bike is preferred. So that's great. So I support option 1 for the test pilot. I think it would be good to understand bike boxes even better because they are a new concept, and I support moving forward on the cross bike. On talking about Village Park, I really appreciate the Village Parkway changes. I had one question for Abe. Abe, on the entrances to the Village Park apartments, or Encinitas apartments, I think is what they are called. We had talked previously, I think even at the previous meeting for this, about extending the red zone at the 2 entrances to give better visibility to the bicyclists in these new bike lanes. Because as it stands today, there are quite a few trade trucks that park along that road. I walk it quite often. And the bikes come whizzing out as the cars are trying to exit. And so if we could take away 2 extra parking spaces at each one of the 2 entrances, we'd lose 4, but I almost never see the parking full on the opposite side of the street because there's no frontage, there's no houses fronting there, and there's no apartments on the opposite side. And there's enough parking in the Encinitas apartments that only the one side really fills. So if you could address whether or not that's taken into account, or could it be taken into account on these plans?
Yes, Councilmember, we are aware of that situation. With the new layout, the site distance would be a little different, so we didn't want to do the calculation based on the existing layout, because with a narrower parking lane and with the new bike lane and buffer that will be added, the lanes will be further out of the driveway. There's still, as you mentioned, additional red curbing needed, but it won't be as excessive as originally we talked about. It would be less of red curb because I don't know if you notice the design, that the travel lane adjacent to that driveway is now about 10 feet further away from that driveway. So the red curbing would be a little less.
So you're guaranteeing the cars will be further out there for visible much sooner, easier than they were prior. Okay, and you're saying that the red zone would be extended some, just not as.
Correct.
And the problem that I've heard from residents there is that bicyclists, they'll be below the pickup truck or the van, and then boom, they're right there at the entrance. I appreciate that.
No, we are aware of that.
Okay, perfect. And I think everything else, one more. Well, tell you what, I'll put my hand back up if I need more.
Okay, thank you.
So I yield.
Deputy Mayor Blackwell.
Yes, thank you. When we declared the bicycle emergency last summer, we talked about going after education, enforcement, and engineering. And I just want to say thank you, because I think with the addition of this plan, we've really made strides in all 3. And having the engineering like this is really great. I do support what's proposed in addition to the slurry seal, if we can afford it. I think my one exception might be with the bike box. I have some concerns about maybe the busyness of those intersections, the fact that the bikes would be in the lane of travel, and the no turn on red would be a big change. And I just wonder if we're maybe not ready for that, right? I was wondering, though, if you could comment, what do you think the pilot will show us, right? If we just did a pilot at, I think you're proposing Encinitas and Vulcan, what would that show us, and how long would a pilot last?
Good question, Councilmember. My first goal is to see first how it's utilized. Like, because we do have left turners, we do have counts, and that was one of the locations that we had a considerable number of left turns from northbound Vulcan. We want to see if they will continue getting into the left turn pocket and turning left, or they will utilize this. Does it make sense to them? With the educational campaign, obviously, that we will need. The second would be obviously the impact on the flow of traffic with that right turn gone, the free right turn, the westbound right turn, how it would impact the intersection, how the bicyclists would approach this, because on paper it's out of the way of traffic. Like, if we assume when northbound vehicles will use this path to go north into Vulcan, or the westbound vehicles will use this path in the number 2 lane to go toward 101, but in reality, is that location that is on paper safe out of the travel way, it's safe in the eyes of the bicyclists? They might get there, but they might not decide after 3 seconds to stay there, and they might go on the sidewalk. That would kind of show us if this is perceived well by our bicycling community or not, because they don't have a clue right now. On paper, it looks fine, but if they, you saw in the video, the guy went into the box, adjust their bike, and then waited there. Is that something that they will feel comfortable after like 5 seconds?
Right. And would we accompany, like, the pilot with some educational videos on how to use, okay.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. I might get more comfortable with it, but it does feel like we got some good feedback from the Bike Coalition on just their concerns, and that's my caveat, is maybe we're rushing into the bike box right now. But otherwise, the plan looks great.
No, we're aware, and as said, the reason that this is there is because in September we promised council that we will bring the 2-stage bike box to council. We are doing enough good that if this is delayed for a later date and we try other stuff, it would not be the end of the world. We are doing a lot of good things.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you. And yes, initially I had the same reaction about eliminating a right on red, but I have, as I've put more miles on my bike, I have come to the opinion that eliminating right on red is actually much safer for bicyclists. And so I think selectively we want to do more of that around our city. And that is a particularly good spot to eliminate the right on red, because there are 2 through lanes westbound at that intersection. So right on red turners are using the bike lane in order to make that right turn. So essentially, they're using the dotted bike lane to be able to squeeze in between all the cars and maybe squeeze around some bike riders and maybe give daggers to bike riders who are blocking their right turn on red. And so overall, I think that that might be a good spot to try a no right on red. It's especially, I think, a good idea because the northbound cars coming down Vulcan are getting up a pretty good head of steam downhill, and I think that the number of accidents at that intersection it's one of the more common places for accidents. I know my daughter was hit there in her car, ended up having to have knee surgery because of it. So it's a possibility. Having said all that, I use the left turn lane on northbound Vulcan a lot, and one of the advantages of using the left turn lane to turn left onto Encinitas Boulevard there, where I go over to Highway 101 to use our new streetscape bike facilities, because I feel more comfortable there than on Vulcan. The advantage of using the north-south green light is that I can get over to 101 without having to fight a whole bunch of westbound traffic. So for me, putting that there might be beneficial for some riders. It isn't going to benefit me. I probably won't use it. I also noticed that the bike lane that's on the north side of Encinitas Boulevard between Vulcan and Highway 101 is a little bit of challenged because if I was riding my bike west to go to Moonlight Beach, the interaction between right-turning cars at Highway 101 is kind of a mess. So we might want to take a look at how we can make improvements to that. That particular stretch, that little chute, is really a challenge for queuing. It's constantly a backup on weekends. Cars trying to get from 101 or Vulcan to Encinitas Boulevard are frequently backed up and having to wait through multiple signals. So there's that. The other point I would like to make is that if you look at the intersection of Ballure and Encinitas Boulevard, Councilmember Hinsey brought up the idea of vertical deflectors. I want to encourage you, when you engineer this, to, instead of making the cross bike parallel to the crosswalk, that you bend that cross bike so that cyclists have green paint that takes them and meets them up with the Ballure bike facility. So the way you've got that green pointed, I suspect that there are going to be a lot of junior high kids that will cut into the intersection and come up on Ballure in the bike lane. And so we want to be sure we paint that green bike lane in a way that is going to give everybody visual cues that this is where the bikes are to go. So pointing that directly at the sidewalk, I don't think is a good idea. And I would look at that in other locations as well. And I would continue green paint into the streets that those cross bikes are connected to, because I think, again, it gives the cues to both motorists as well as cyclists about the right place to be. I love seeing the Santa Fe Drive cross bike. Thank you for putting that in. That's really important. A lot of lanes to try and cross over in order to make that left turn. The pedestrian signalization is not easy to work with as a bicyclist. I love the Chesterfield cross bike. That works very well. I use that a lot when I'm going northbound on 101 and I want to get back over to the cycle track. I use the cross bike at the Swami's Crossing a lot. Great work there. I appreciate that. And we want to continue to do as many of these, make as many of these improvements as we can. So, thank you. I don't see Councilmember Hinsey.
I forgot one thing, and that was to give support for Michael Von Neumann's recommendation to add the signage of bikes may use full lane in the areas we're adding Sharrows. And I'll make a motion. Well, I don't know where we stand on the bike boxes, so maybe I'll back off that. I feel like we should move forward with all of the recommendations aside from the bike boxes at this time. If somebody has a strong opinion about that, I could be persuaded to go forward with the pilot, but at this time, I just feel like we're doing a lot. There's a lot of education to do with how to use the paint, the green paint, and I think we should just manage doing that well for now.
I would second that. Deputy Mayor Lyons, or excuse me, Councilmember Lyons.
I withdrew my request. I was going to second that.
Oh, okay. Councilmember Ehlers, you have anything more?
No, I'm good. I was going to offer the second, but I figured you guys would beat me to it.
Okay, very good. So we have a motion and a second?
On the motion, it's with the approving as presented. Is it to include the additional optional slurry seal?
So I think there was support for that.
Okay, great. And then it's with the exception,
And then
the elimination of the two-stage bike box.
Yeah, that's correct. I don't know if I need to add in the motion some of the other recommendations, like reserving the amount of money for Paul Leckie Central. That's really important to me. I don't think that's a costly project.
You should be able to.
Okay, so I won't include that. But I will include Michael Von Neumann's suggestion of the bikes may use full lane signage.
Yep.
perfect.
So we roll calling?
Yes, Councilmember Lyons?
Yes.
Councilmember Ehlers?
Yes.
Councilmember Hinsey?
Yes?
Deputy Mayor Blackwell?
Yes.
And Mayor Kranz?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Great. Thank you. And thank you, Megan. Your dad would be proud. Okay. On to item number 2, which is design and plans for the safety and mobility enhancement project on Saxony Road and Quail Gardens Drive. And once again, we have our city traffic engineer. Really, this night is all about our city traffic engineer, Abe.
Not just me, Mayor. Thank you for your support on the previous item. My name was mentioned a few times. I do want to use the opportunity, give a kudos to our staff. One reason that we have the money to do this is that we saved easily $300,000 to $500,000 just for the design. When I mentioned in September that we'll take care of this in-house, everybody was surprised. Obviously, Jill supported us, letting us go a little slower on the other stuff, but our staff, Ian Barr is here, one of our staff, 2 other engineers of ours, they did a great job, designed all these. If we had to hire a consultant, it would take us 3 months to hire a consultant, let alone the $500,000 that we would have to spend on just design. So
Smart
they took
man.
everything in-house.
Share that credit. Yes, sir. Good job. Appreciate everybody.
The second one, safety and mobility enhancements on Quail and Saxony Road. A little bit of history on this. Oh, sorry. A little bit of history on this. We have various land uses there along these 2 corridors, residential, recreational, commercial. We have the Y, we have the AccuRanch, the medical center. We have future development coming up, mostly on Quail, obviously. We received numerous requests from the residents of the 2 corridors the past 2 years for traffic calming, traffic management. We did conduct an analysis and evaluated the 2 corridors. It was presented to the Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission in April last year. Saxony was presented in June of last year. The fact that City Council's 23-24 strategic planning framework includes prioritization for safety and completed streets on these 2 corridors, we did decide to bring these to council for future direction. These are all the intersections that we evaluated along the corridor. We have a speed radar feedback signs. We collected additional data. All these locations we evaluated sight distance, the stop sign evaluation, the speeding, collision history, everything. So what we came up with was a bunch of different improvements at each of these corridors. On Quail, we went with narrow lanes. We did get a direction in September to look at possibly adding buffers. A limited area, initially we thought there was no room. Later on, when we evaluated more in depth, we noticed where there is no median, there is actually some room to add a narrow buffer. It's narrow, but it's better than nothing. So we did redesign this with now a new buffer. It's a 5-footer bike lane and a 2-footer buffer with moving all the travel lanes to 10. But this, as said, only feasible in the area where we do not have a median. Another improvement directed by council was to add a always stop control at the intersection of Via Zamia and Quail Gardens Drive. Side distance was an issue here. It did meet the METCD warrants, was recommended by council, so we're proposing this. The striping plan does show the new stop sign that will go in place here. Mini roundabout at the intersection of Quail Gardens and AccuRanch Road. This will help a lot with control of traffic, especially left turns onto AccuRanch and also for the school district site. On the east side, this concept was presented to the city council, was supported. So this is the new design that, pending council approval, will go in place. We are at this time looking at a rubber, hard rubber type roundabout that we presented some sample photos to city council in September. Obviously, we can look at if this is a successful mini roundabout, we can in the future look at upgrading it. But this is the design, very similar to the other mini roundabouts, the other roundabouts that we have in the city. It's a little bit smaller than the Santa Fe, but it's pretty close. The Santa Fe roundabout, the big circle is about 95 feet. This one, the big circle around the roundabout is about 80 feet, so it's somewhat close to that size. But it's a good size. There's good deflection, because one of our main goals was to have enough deflection to calm traffic as much as possible, not to get to a EOLA situation where one approach is minimally deflected, so it doesn't calm traffic that much. So this will have that effect. Another was the interim stop sign at the Christian Court intersection in anticipation of the future development project, building a traffic signal here at their main entrance. There are also other options currently under consideration here to see if we can fit a mini roundabout here too, to be more consistent along the corridor, but since that's a development project. Okay. Someone was calling me on this. But at this time, this is a stop sign that was directed by council as an interim measure, and we are implementing it with this project. As you can see, there are buffers for the bike lane. South of the Eki Ranch Road, by the Y, we have on Saxony a wider cross section. We have multiple travel lanes. We have parking. But we did look at it objectively to see if we can fit a new bike lane, some buffers maybe. And this was a cross section that was supported by council, and we were able to implement it with the existing lane width that we have. This is just one sample right south of the Y entrance. We're adding bike lanes and narrowing down the lanes, adding a pocket to enter the Y. North of Eki Ranch entrance, there is active parking utilization along the corridor in the narrower area of Saxony. At that point, council directed us to go forward with the Sharrow, but do contact the residents who have frontage on Saxony to basically check with them how they feel about removal of parking. We did send out around a letter to all the 80-some residents that had frontage on Saxony. We only received 10 feedbacks out of those, which was about half and half. 5 were in support, 5 were against removal of parking. But because this was the direction that we received from council, we did design it with Sharrows. This is just north of Publa. This is the mini roundabout that was originally discussed with council at the entrance to the Y. Now, we had multiple conversations and meetings with the Y and with the representatives of the business on the east side. And due to various concerns, mainly access at peak periods to the Y and also the construction activity that Y is anticipating, we decided to move away from this at this time and replace this traffic calming idea with implementing chicanes. Now we have something similar to this in Cardiff area, but not exactly this. This is a new design that council did not see in September, but this is supported by Y and the residents, the business on the east side, between Saxony Place and basically the left of the picture is the entrance to the Y right now. So we're deflecting the pavement, the roadway, the travel lane, in a way that vehicles would have to kind of meander in the roadway, and this will have a considerable traffic calming effect on them. The future, these two small gray lines that you see here is a future access by Y that's in there. It hasn't yet been implemented, but Y will be working. This design will also allow this future intersection to be implemented with being able to keep the chicane in place. So we did talk to Y, we did check their designs, and we're optimistic that this will have minimal change when that future Y access is opened on Saxony. But in advance of the Y entrance, we will have a good traffic calming with this design. The cost estimate for this, a little bit higher than originally anticipated. We're looking at $350,000. But again, with basically all of the fundings that we have available in our different accounts, we should be able to cover this too, assuming the bids will come out at or close to this number. Thank you. I'm open to questions, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any public speakers?
We do. We have several.
Okay, are there any preliminary questions from council? Seeing none, we will go to the public for comment.
Okay, our first 3 speakers, Glenn Johnson, Dick Stern, and then Jim Farley.
Okay, we're live. Good. First of all, Happy New Year to the council, the mayor, to Bruce, and to the staff members. It's now we can get some things done. There's been quite a bit of studies and work on this staff and public and commission, and this plan is really, I think, a great plan. There's been a lot of compromises, and probably after the council gets through it, there may be more. Just a reminder, the big issue here, especially on Quail Gardens Drive, is the traffic volume and speed. Makes it difficult to get in and out. My street is Kristen Court. And it makes it difficult to get in and out, especially during rush hour. So the volume and speed of traffic needs to be examined. I think other speakers are going to go into more details, but I think we want to go ahead and implement this as soon as possible, rather than picking through the details, because I'm sure changes will inevitably happen. I really like the all-way stop at Kristen Court, because downhill speeding traffic past Kristen Court makes it sometimes quite difficult to get out, especially when there's also traffic going the other direction uphill. It seems like the long turn lane at the top of the hill bunches up the traffic, especially during rush hour, and we need to just slow it and calm it, and the roundabout will help a whole lot there. So I'd like to thank you and urge you to go ahead and improve this.
Thank you.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members. My name is Dick Stern. I'm the president of the Encinitas Ranch Community Association, as well as a spokesman for the Four Corners Consortium, which represents residents who live along Quail Gardens Drive and Saxony Road. I'm here tonight to share with you our collective and strong support for the recommendations and detailed plans brought forward to address safety and traffic concerns on Quail Gardens Drive and Saxony Road. The issues around safety and traffic on Quail Gardens Drive will only continue to get worse as we add 3,000 to 4,000 new residents in the next few years. Traffic is foremost in our minds, and the safety of our children. The Four Corners Consortium was formed 2 years ago specifically to address traffic and safety concerns on this road corridor, but the real work started nearly 10 years ago with a study commissioned in 2014 by the Leashtag Foundation with the same objective in mind. We met with you in early 2021 to solicit your advice and counsel on a course of action. We followed your input to the letter. We have met with city staff numerous times, both on-site and at City Hall. We have met with each council member at least several times on this matter, and we have been before you in this forum to advance our collective plans and seek feedback. So now is the time that we take together to take the final steps to approve and implement the plans brought forward. They represent excellent work on the part of the city staff. I commend Abe for his outstanding support and work. Having personally served on the City Infrastructure Task Force now for over 6 months, I should say, I've gained a very deep understanding about how many other parts of the city have similar concerns over traffic and safety. It's very important that the city work with those residents to develop similar plans. However, the owners along Quail Gardens Drive and Saxony Road have put in the time and effort over 10 years to get where we are, and it's time to take these final last steps. Let us use this project as a model for how the city and residents can work together in an open, transparent, and collaborative manner. We urge the council to act decisively to approve these proposed plans. Thank you.
Thanks, Dick. And infrastructure task force has made 6 months seem like 60 months. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Next speaker is Jim Farley, then Steve Gherkin, and then Aaron Hebsche.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, distinguished members of council. My name is Jim Farley. I am the CEO of the Leastag Foundation. I'm rising tonight to, in support of this plan. As Dick just said, we've been thinking about this for years, and the vision has been if we can create enough traffic calming around along both Saxony and Quail Garden Drive, we will arrive at a point where cars may be traveling at less than 30 miles an hour, which I believe should be a goal, and we will see much less risk to our families and our children in this neighborhood. This is one of the most unique neighborhoods in North America. In 140 acres, which is not even 1% of the city of Encinitas, you have the most active YMCA one of the most active YMCA sites in North America, one of the 5 most active. You've got the immense number of folks now using the Botanic Garden, over 8,000 membership units and countless number of folks that visit it. I'm sure everybody saw the light show. In the light show alone, you had 130,000 entrants this year for the light show alone. So the kind of activity that's going on in this neighborhood and the way it's serving our families and raising our children, the eye towards having a neighborhood that is the best we can make it in terms of safety for our children and our young families is, to me, the goal of this plan, has to be the vision for this neighborhood. I see this as a very positive next step. A lot of work remains to be done, especially on Saxony. In my view, it's an older road, has a lot of challenges, but we need to do the work there so that we can balance the effect on both sides of that neighborhood. So thank you so much for your work. I want to commend city staff on the way they engaged with the neighborhood and got the input from all the stakeholders before they made their decision. It made open government seem like a very comfortable and enjoyable place to work. Thank you so much for your work on this. Vote yes.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Steve Gherkin. He'll be followed by Aaron Hebsche, and then Michael von Neumann, and then Brian Blair.
One of the people where the mic's just the right height. There it is. Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and Abe Bandigan, traffic engineer, and his staff. I'm Steve Gherkin, an Encinitas resident. I'd like to say that with all these plans and details before us, I want to remind and refocus us on why we're meeting on this agenda item tonight. Safety. We came to you because we didn't feel safe walking, biking, or even driving on Quail Gardens Drive. We showed you why we didn't feel safe. We showed you that cars are traveling at 85 to 93 miles an hour on this road. We showed you that 45% of the cars traveled to over 45 miles an hour on Quail Gardens Drive. That amounted to 4,000 to 5,000 cars a day that were speeding by within a few feet of us. You heard us. You provided the help of the traffic engineering group that analyzed the situation. And here we are with the plan. And the plan has been vetted by ourselves, by our neighbors, at commissions and at council meetings. And their concerns were incorporated into the changes, into the designs. And now I think we have a robust plan. Let's approve the plan. Let's see if it makes us feel safer by slowing down vehicles and by creating safer spaces for cyclists to use Quail Gardens Drive. And let's measure the impacts. We have speed feedback signs, thank you to the Leach-Tog Foundation for that can be used to measure traffic. I do request that we relocate the speed feedback sign from Kristen Court to the vicinity of the southern drive of the Botanical Gardens to help us gather meaningful traffic data to assess the plan's effectiveness. So I encourage the council to vote yes on this agenda item. Let's go see if our efforts make Encinitas a safer and better place to live. Thank you. And I'll answer any questions that you may have. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Oops. Get out of my own way here.
I've got a few slides. You can pull them up. You can pull them up, IT. Hi, folks. Aaron Hebsche, Leucadia District 1. Thank you guys for all of the hard work that you've been putting in to try to make our city safer for all modes of transportation.
Excuse me. It doesn't look like IT has slides from you.
I don't see any slides.
You don't see any slides? Okay. Then I'll just speak to the subject. Thank you, Abe. Thank you, staff, for all of the heavy work that you guys have done. We still obviously have a lot of work to do to continue to make this a safe stretch of corridors on Saxony and Quail Gardens. I wanted to speak specifically about Saxony tonight. And while I like the fact that you've been able to find solutions to calm down traffic and get bike lanes in up to Ecky Ranch Road, I strongly feel that we have actual space to put in and extend those bike lanes north all the way to Leucadia Boulevard. One of the slides I had was a picture of a abandoned vehicle on Saxony Road, and I've been passing it by every single day on my way to pick up my daughter from Farm Lab after school. And I went back into Google Street View, and the image from 2022, it was still there, right? Like, the guy may have died and and left his car there. And so we're sacrificing putting in bike lanes so a dead person can keep his car on the street. Hyperbole aside, I have a friend who lives on Saxony, just north of Sidonia, and I asked her what she thought about bike lanes, and she's like, well, I've got 5 cars with my family and my renter. And while I don't have that much personal sympathy for people who have 5 cars with no place to put them on a 10,000-foot lot, she did mention that if they put in bike lanes on one side, or parking on one side and bike lanes, I would support that. And so I want you to be able to take a look at taking off parking from one side of Saxony. And on the west side of the road, there's right-of-way. There's a soft curb and right-of-way. And a lot of cars are parked off of the pavement halfway onto that right-of-way anyway. So you may be able to reconfigure something, put bike lane, travel lane, bike lane, and parking. So that's it. I hope that we'll be able to discuss that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello again, Michael Von Neumann, East Encinitas, and I'm in support of this agenda item. I do have one thing that I want to point out is the chicane on Saxony. I think this is a big step for the city of Encinitas because this is an item that is in the manual of uniform control devices. Is that what I'm talking about? It is something that has been in a manual for cities to utilize. And I think seeing this utilized on a road that has a large volume of traffic, it will show us the effectiveness of it. So I'm totally in support of that, and I think it's great. Again, I would recommend applying bicycles may use full lane pavement legends on the sharrows on Saxony. If there's one side that has a bike lane, then let's put them on the other side. I think it's also important, I don't know if everybody here knows that our traffic engineer, Abe Bandigan, was one of the first people or first traffic engineers to actually put down these pavement legends on bicycles may use full lanes. I know it's been recognized by people up on the Traffic Commission up in Carlsbad that they point out to it that was a great idea. So they are utilized. I'm glad they're being utilized. Thank you.
Next speaker is Brian Blair, and it'll be followed by Tom Bertullis and then Christine Schindler.
Good evening, City Council, Mayor. Thank you for the effort that has moved these safety-focused projects forward over the years. Great things can truly happen when city leaders and citizens come together. Our city engineering staff has a difficult role to play. They have to address resident safety, business needs, and the vision of the City Council while providing the best solutions within the parameters and rules of Caltrans. This is not easily done. So our traffic engineering team got feedback from every angle, as has been discussed tonight. And I was with Mr. Bandigan out on Quail Gardens Drive, thoughtfully assessing things. And I just really appreciated that time that he took. And I believe they have achieved an outstanding solution as these designs thoughtfully consider all parties. The designs equally address the needs of the motorist, the bicyclist, and the pedestrian alike. These plans enable safe egress and ingress into neighborhoods, as was mentioned earlier. It has been dangerous, scary oftentimes, going just in and out of Encinitas Ranch, Channel Islands, and the various neighborhoods. And this, these two stop signs and roundabout absolutely address that thoughtfully. They thoughtfully use some green paint, which I just love green paint. As a motorist, I love it. It always makes me aware. It makes me stop and pause, check my mirror. Is there a bicyclist? Every single time, every day, day and night. And I think it's brilliant. The more green paint we opt to use, the better. So I was really happy to see some green paint incorporated in these designs. These designs also incorporate intelligent design changes based on feedback. I like the fact that there was initially going to be a roundabout on Saxony, and it changed based on feedback. And the word chicane isn't just a cool word to say. It's an effective tool in traffic calming. After all, they work on the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Let's let that sink in for just a second. Chicanes work. So in a world where everyone's in a hurry, these designs that have been thoughtfully presented, they encourage vehicles to slow down. Slower cars can see kids, slower cars can see bicyclists, slower cars have more time to react. Slower cars save lives. And isn't saving lives a great thing to be doing as a city council? So let's approve these well-thought-out designs tonight as part of the larger plan to move Encinitas towards Encinitas roads forward toward a safer future. Let's add these plans to the slower speed limits that hopefully are rolled out citywide in July. Thank you again for all the time, effort, for listening, working with the public, and thank you again to Mr. Bandigan and his team.
Tom?
Almost. She was amazing.
City Council, hello. Abe, Ian, Joe. Wow, how do I pass that up? Really good presentations. Yeah, I just kind of came at the last minute to this meeting and wanted to comment. I feel like I'm learning a lot from all these people presenting, so thank you to the audience. I'm going to be really quick and short. I really like this project. In general, I really support traffic calming, slower speeds, more protected, separated bike lanes. So obviously, in the long term, the more protection, the separation, the better. I happen to go to the YMCA 3 times a week, so I actually know that area really well. I live in Cardiff. I used to live on Summit where the chicane was. That's kind of nice. So I'm excited to see that chicane. I'm really excited to see this. Obviously, I'm more excited about the bike lanes and the sharrows, but basically, big thank you to council and staff for all this work. I support this.
Next speaker is Christine Schindler, and she will be followed by Mary Kay Mullally.
So Christine Schindler, East Encinitas. I guess I should also say Happy New Year, so I didn't start with that last time. So a lot of positive remarks. I think I'm just going to add to them and maybe make a couple of mentions. Looking at Quail Gardens first, I absolutely love that there's going to be a roundabout. I saw in the comments that were submitted that it's got the full support of E3, Encinitas Union School District, Farm Lab, San Diego Botanical Gardens. I want to echo what people have said already about city staff interacting with all the key stakeholders and residents and businesses on the corridors. So that's been well done and certainly appreciated. I do want to say, as far as the roundabout goes, having sharrows that feed into the roundabout, I don't think I saw that on the design, but that's important so that people can transition out of a bike lane into the middle of the travel lane well ahead of going into the roundabout, especially from the south and the north where most of the traffic's coming from. So if it's not already there, I would recommend those being added. Saxony, I agree with Aaron Hebshaw that if we can take parking out, and it sounds like it's probably on the west side of the road, as you go north, getting close to Leucadia Boulevard, certainly want that to be able to continue the bike lanes and not use sharrows if possible. So would encourage the City Council to support that and for staff to look into that further. It's interesting that only 10 of 80 or so residents that were reached out to responded. That gives us a reality check about community input, and that it was 5 and 5. So I think there's some support for looking at that again and seeing if it's going to be possible to use bike lanes further. Wonderful presentation by Brian. Chicane is a interesting thing, and I do like the fact that there was a roundabout initially on Saxony, but then there was some interactions that happened, and staff came up with another good alternative, a way to do some traffic calming in a different way. So I also just want to commend staff for all the high visibility pedestrian crossings that are going in throughout the community, the use of rapid flashing beacons to help with pedestrian crosswalks and bringing more visibility to that movement. And I love seeing more of that, so I just want to appreciate and acknowledge that as well. Thank you.
Evening, Mayor Krantz and the council. I am Mary Kay Mullally. I'm the HOA president for One Channel Island, and I live on Polaris Drive. And I wanted to ask if the city had considered putting in a four-way stop at the intersection of Polaris Drive, Poinsettia Park, and Saxony Road to kind of match the others on Quail Gardens Drive at the intersection of Quail Gardens and Via Zamia, I think it's called. There is a proposed four-way there because there is quite a bit of high-speed traffic on Saxony as well as Quail Gardens. It's very difficult coming out of Polaris in the morning, especially at rush hour. When we're coming out of Polaris, Poinsettia Park is also coming out, and people are trying to go left or right from either side. It's quite a conundrum in that area. So I wanted to ask the city to consider a four-way stop there, and I do appreciate that turn lanes have been added at that intersection, which I think will help, but my concern is the high-speed traffic on Saxony, and I think if we put stops, then it would also calm the traffic a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, that does conclude speakers on this item.
Okay, great. Councilmember Hensy.
Thank you. Thanks to all the speakers. I think that all the folks who have been advocating for this for over a year, Brian Blair and Dick Stern and those folks from C3 and Glenn. You've really done a tremendous job of making your case concise and sticking through the process and educating all of us along the way. Like, I think it was you, Brian, that said, I think we actually can fit buffers in some of these areas. So we really appreciate that attention to detail, and I feel really happy that we're at this point today with a package of improvements that satisfies a lot of these needs. So I will go ahead and support them. And I think we did talk a little bit about the bike lanes continuing the bike lanes on Saxony at our last meeting. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the holdup was that for us to go through the process of the neighborhood input that we would want to give those neighbors, it would delay the whole striping. So that's why we're going forward with the sharrows now, but we will continue the public process of reaching out to the neighbors and having an agenda item in the future about installing bike lanes. Is that correct?
I would have to check with our development services, our planners, to see what, being obviously coastal zone, but we have to see what kind of legal process we have to go through to eliminate all the parking along the roadway. But we can check and see what kind of community outreach is required. Is this letters? Does this suffice, or we have to do more? Is it a community meeting? I'm not familiar with the process, but we can certainly continue this outreach and see where we get with it.
Okay, that's my hope, that as part of this motion, we're approving the sharrow transition as an interim to a long-term solution that could be the bike lanes. And then this is, we brought this up through other items, but does the MUTCD have any guidance on transitions between bike lanes ending and into a sharrow and the reverse as well?
No, there's no, you mean like a specific type of striping?
Yeah, like green dash striping that would say, the bike lane's ending, so, dominate the sharrow, get into the middle where cars can see you.
Usually we change at an intersection so that the dashes are usually, like before the intersection, you go to a dash, and then after the intersection, the sharrows pick up. Usually it doesn't happen like in middle of a roadway segment, like a mid-block situation. But yeah, I don't think I have that piece in the presentation where the sharrow begins, but there will be dashes. If it's connecting, there will be dashes to allow them to get out of the bike lane.
Okay, that's great. That would be part of my recommendation. And then the other transition that was brought up was by Christine Schindler in this roundabout, the mini roundabout. So from the plans, it's hard to see. I know our roundabouts on North Coast Highway 101 allow bikers the option of entering the sidewalk. So they have a little curb ramp where they can just enter the sidewalk, navigate the roundabout as a pedestrian, or they can stay in the sharrow and they can go through the roundabout as a car. Is that curb ramp option going to be possible so younger riders could continue to ride on the sidewalk?
I don't think on the north side we have a available sidewalk for bikers to get on, but the sharrows on the pavement will add them to the approaches where the bike lane ends, so that it's more clear to the drivers that they should anticipate bicyclists getting out of the bike lane in that small segment where the bike lane ends and the roundabout begins. We'll add sharrows there.
Okay, so we wouldn't do the curb ramps because it's going to be like $100,000 more dollars.
Yeah, I think it would be, yeah.
Like that. Okay.
Right now, I don't think there's anything there.
All right. Well, if there's an opportunity at all, I think it's worth looking at because we do know we have Farm Lab there, lots of kids attending and crossing that street. So if it is possible, I would be in support of that. And gosh, there was one more thing. So this little mini roundabout would be us cracking the code and figuring out how to make a roundabout for less than $1 million, right? That's so exciting. Congratulations. And to the mayor who's been pushing this idea forward for a long time. That's huge for us. And I hope that this works and we can see them in more of the locations where we know we need them. And then my last question, I know we did a lot of warrants to see where the all-way stops were going to be warranted along Quail Gardens Drive. Did we happen to assess this Polaris intersection on Saxony?
I did just check. This was one of the intersections, but the warrants that did apply to Via Zemia intersection does not apply. At Via Zemia, Quail Garden has two different bends in opposite direction on both north and south that limits the sight distance, which was basically the warrant for for the stop sign. On the Saxony side, Polaris intersects Saxony on a perfectly perpendicular angle, and Saxony is straight in both directions. There's no sight distance issue.
I see. So we did analyze it, and it wasn't a good candidate.
It is not a good.
Okay, thank you. Well, hopefully some of the striping improvements will make it a little easier to get in and out. And part of the design of this project is to bring the speeds down so that traffic is calmed and there will be more of an opportunity. But I'm happy to come meet with you at that intersection and take a look if after these improvements the problem persists. Thank you.
Yes, and I'm likely to support an unwarranted all-way stop there because I believe in slowing down traffic, as this young woman has pointed out. I also think that the traffic pattern, especially during commute hours with the long pocket of left turns from Encinitas Boulevard westbound to Saxony Road, would be mitigated, I think, with another all-way stop. So, but let me call on Councilmember Lyons.
Thank you. I want to share a lot of the speakers' support for this work to move forward, and also for support for evaluating and then using the chicane approach. It's a really effective traffic calming device, and I'm glad to see it used, and hopefully it will be as effective as we all hope it will be. I think the more we can slow the traffic down with devices like this in the future on other roadways, the better for our community, and I'm happy to see so much support today for it. I have two questions remaining other than what's already been asked. There's a future access to the YMCA where they're going to be planning an access to some parking north of their current access. Could you explain how we can accommodate that or how it will be accommodated in the future? You've had some dialogue with them, I imagine.
Sure, yes, let me bring the design up. So, from what I recall, the modification would be in this area, like north of the parking lot. This area, like right south of Saxony Place, there will be a new access connecting to Saxony, basically the northern end of the lot, and this is where basically our chicane would start. Going back to the presentation. This is the Saxony Place, so that future access is somewhere around here. We did receive the design from the Y team, and I think this is where it's going to line up in the future, or somewhere around here.
I think you're right, yes.
And as you can see, we have this wide crosshatch area here that entrance of a new future road to this. We can modify this crosshatch to form a minor T intersection here, so that vehicles can enter, turn left in, or turn right out of, or turn left out of. We had to kind of shift it. As you can see, the two chicanes don't look exactly identical. Initially, they were closer to Saxony Place, so both of these were the same size, but in anticipation of this coming, we had to kind of push this a little bit toward south so that this future access will work with the existing, with the future existing, I guess,
Great.
chicanes.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you for coordinating with them on that, and I know their plans aren't, well, at least their plans may not be complete yet, so so it sounds like there's some flexibility there to work with them in the future. And I did have another question. I apologize. Let's see. No, just another comment. I know that we are in the future we're going to be looking at the costs of connecting pedestrian access along Quail Garden Drive 2, right there on the west side of the road, south along the property, along the Botanical Gardens property. So I look forward to really complementing what we're doing here by making that connection and that continuity for pedestrians in this area too. I know it's another item, but I see it as complementary to improving the safety along this corridor. And we're still assessing the cost of that, and we'll make decisions, and that will come before us sometime in the near future. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you. And this is going to be the entrance to a new parking lot around those sports fields, right? So that particular new entrance is likely to be busy at end of games, start of games, things like that. So it's important that we accommodate, and I appreciate the work that you did with the YMCA, because we did hear from them once they got wind of the roundabout. So thanks for working with them. Councilmember Ehlers.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you. I'd also like to thank Jill, Abe, and the team for getting this done in-house and quickly. I appreciate it both because of the cost savings, but also because of the time savings. And I also like it because it makes our staff the expert in exactly the kind of change that will be needed as we modify, just as we were talking about here for the YMCA extra parking entrance, or for changing the parking/bike lane configuration on the north end of Saxony. So that's great. I want to repeat, or not, double down on the comment about the chicane. My favorite author is Mark Twain, and he says, if your only tool is a hammer, everything begins to look like a nail. And some days I felt like we use roundabouts that way, and to see a roundabout replaced with, I think, a more appropriate chicane, wonderful. So thank you. I would be interested in where we are using the sharrows. Michael von Neumann's comment about, bikes may use full lane down on the pavement. I like that. I think that is very appropriate. In fact, I like it better than having signs saying that, because often I feel like as we put more and more signs up, they're losing their effectiveness. But I agree. I agree with we want to make it very, very clear to the drivers, all drivers, whether they live in the area or whether they're new to the area, that the bicycle in a sharrow situation may use the full area. Now that we've done all this, I should talk about stop sign at Polaris and Poinsettia Place. I think Mayor Kranz said exactly what I would say. I would support this in the future in all likelihood. Obviously I have to see what the design is. I don't want to delay what we're doing here and now. I would say the same thing about changing the configuration from the sharrows on North Saxony, the north end of Saxony. I like the design as it is, and really for one main reason, I would consider coming back and looking at that in the future if we determine we could do it. But I really want to get this thing moving forward, because I think safety is both about making it better, but making it better now, not later. And so I'd like to just move it forward. And let's see, I would make a motion, if that's okay, to support this with one addition, which was the Sharrow legends down on the road.
Oh, we do already have a motion. I'm not sure if that's a change to the motion there, Kelly.
That's fine. I'm happy to add that to the motion, along with striping the transitions between the bike lane and the Sharrow on Saxony.
Yeah. And do you have a second yet? I can't see the
yes
motion and second flags. Okay, great. If you'll accept that, great. So that's a friendly amendment in that case.
I accept.
And with that, okay. And with that, I will yield.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Blackwell.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief. I think I would echo everyone by going last in the chain. You sometimes get all your questions answered and all the comments made. I'm really supportive moving forward. It's time. It's taken a lot of work from 2014 all the way to get here. And so I appreciate the community and city partnership and all the work traffic engineering did. So let's go.
Thank you. Yes, it is, in my opinion, well past time. I've been here 11 years, and we've been talking about this for way too long. The Leach Tag Foundation did generously provide the consultant for many of these ideas, although I think a lot of that has been modified a bit by our own staff and public input. And so I think to many of the comments, the open government process that we've seen in this is commendable. So thank you all, the public and staff. It's good to get to this point where we are actually taking some concrete steps, no pun intended. So I think with that, we have a motion and a second, and we're ready to
And
vote.
it was staff recommendation with the addition of the bicycles may use full lane markings in the Sharrows, as well as the bike lane transition to Sharrows striping on Saxony.
If I may, can you change that to proper Sharrow marking? Just recently, the national MUTCD changed, giving more strength to the bicyclists. The bicyclists may use full lane now is bicyclists are allowed to use full lane. To notify the drivers that it's not a may, they are allowed to use it.
And we don't spell out bicyclists, we say bikes, right? Isn't that how we do it on that sign?
I think we just use the Sharrow logo instead of, because bicycle is a big word, doesn't fit in the lane. We're just using the Sharrow marking
Very
as
good.
a bicycle and then say may use full lane,
All
but it
right.
will be changed to allow.
All good.
Yeah, it's not yet in effect, but I want to make sure I'm using the right
So we're just adding proper Sharrow marking.
Sharrow.
All right,
Okay.
we'll start voting. Councilmember Lyons?
Yes.
Councilmember Ehlers?
Yes.
Councilmember Hensy?
Yes?
Deputy Mayor Blackwell?
Yes.
And Mayor Kranz.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, appreciate your advocacy, all of you. So with that, we will move on to item number 3, which is the designation of the intersection control at La Costa Avenue and Sheridan Road as an all-way stop control.
Allowed is small, allowed.
And this is something that that was on the back burner for a while, and we got it off the back burner, and it is now here. I don't know if you have a presentation, Abe?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. The next item, the always stop control at the intersection of La Costa Avenue and Sheridan Road. Quick background, 2018-2019, Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission and Council received concerns from residents about this intersection, turning left in, turning left out. Generally, the speed of traffic on La Costa during off-peak periods and how it's not convenient and comfortable getting out of Sheridan or getting into Sheridan at this location. In 2020 and 2021, we evaluated multiple traffic control options, not only at this intersection, but at multiple locations along La Costa, including La Costa and Vulcan. We also hired a consultant in 2021 to have like a more holistic look at the corridor. The consultant evaluated the corridor in length, different traffic control options. I do have that presentation on those slides if council wants to look at it again. They evaluated mini roundabouts at Vulcan, at Sheridan intersections, traffic signal, addition of a two-way left turn lane. They evaluated multiple options along the corridor. We provided their findings to council in November 2022. There was, at that point, suggestions from City Council to look at a possibility of an always stop control at Sheridan intersection. That item was tabled in December of 2022. However, last month, Council voted to reconsider that always stop. And now we're here tonight to take a new look at this intersection. Aerial view at this location, as you can see, we have bike lanes in both directions, 2 narrow travel lanes, and a pedestrian walkway area on the surface. Always stop is feasible. The volume is not that high. The box number 3 on the bottom right shows the volume of traffic during peak morning and peak afternoon. The first number before the slash is peak morning. The second number after the slash is peak afternoon. As you can see, the lift in is about 43, 42 during morning and afternoon per hour, less than 1 per minute, I guess. And then the left out is even smaller. We have 9 in the peak morning and 14 in the peak afternoon. Obviously, the right out can be a matter of concern if it's lower volume. During off-peak period on La Costa, speeds can be a little higher, but the collision history didn't show that much. Not that many rear ends or anything that would justify additional measures here. Per direction of City Council, we have designed an always stop control here, similar to Vulcan stop sign, where we implemented it the first few months. We had not frequent, but a good concerning number of residents who weren't stopping at the stop sign where we first implemented the Vulcan stop sign. So after a few months, I think 2 or 3 months, we ended up adding blinking stop signs here. We didn't want to take the same try and error approach. We are recommending starting, if this is approved by council, we are recommending stopping with the blinking stop sign, and after a couple of months we can remove it and then evaluate to see if anything changes. But for the first few months, we think it's good to at least start with the blinking stop sign. Everything else is pretty much standard: a stop bar, a stop legend, and everything. This is just it, so this is for council to decide if we're proceeding with this. Thank you. I'm open to questions.
Thank you. Public speakers?
Yes. So we do have 4. Paul Rodano, followed by Steve Gilman, Scott Campbell, and then Tom Bertollis.
Good evening. I'm Paul Rodino. I live on 2016 Sheridan Road, so I'm just right around the corner from this intersection. First off, I want to thank you for taking the time to meet with me at that intersection and have some discussions about it. Mayor Krantz has met me several times there with, last time with Councilmember Ehlers, and Councilmember Blackwell met me there also. And originally, when I first started this conversation several years ago, I met with Councilmember Hines, and at the time you were a council member also. So thank you for taking the time and spending the time to look at this intersection. I know you've got a lot of other traffic issues to deal with, which seems to be the message today. But I am in support of this four-way sign, or all-way stop sign. I think it's critically important to the safety of this intersection and safety of what's going on La Costa, only to be exacerbated by more homes being built and more apartments being built, and both of those are getting ready to come online. So I think the traffic patterns are going to change and going to be even more robust. Also, by way of those traffic patterns, if they are the same ones that were done in 2020 and 2021, I think the patterns maybe were reflected a bit by COVID. If you remember going out on the freeway or out on any of the roads during COVID, there were no cars. So maybe a relook at that if that's an issue. But at any rate, I know we're all aware of the current traffic situations and risks and the pending development projects. As I said, I think the situation is going to get worse. So the approval is really the beginning of, I think, the recommendations that came through in the RIC engineering study that I know Abe has and had mentioned. The challenge with the RIC engineering study, while it did not support an all-way stop, I think, my opinion, because of the study being done during COVID, it does support a mini roundabout, and I would like to see us do the all-way stop and then go to the roundabout after that, kind of a phased look at it, because I think this road has not really been addressed enough. The traffic calming measures have been, we've had some traffic calming measures in adjacent streets. Sheridan Road South has some speed tables, and the intersection of Sheridan and Andrews has had a full all-way stop. So I think it's about time that we move it out onto really where the traffic is, really where the risks are, and really where the potential where the potential risks are. And I liked what Councilmember Ehlers said about safety. It's better to make it now, do it now, and not wait. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm probably not going to be very popular with my comments on this. I live on La Costa Avenue. I live across from Chevron. Abe, when they brought this up, I think it was a year ago, with the center turn lane, I've always advocated for a reduced speed limit. I saw what everyone approved and was happy for with safety was I see Saxony's gone from 35 to 25. I've been asking for La Costa Avenue to get down to at least 30, and we're at 35. I walk my dogs Monday through Friday, about 7:40. Anyone want to ever go from La Costa there all the way to Alea Merlea? And I can't tell you how many times it's weekly occurrence I'm almost hit by somebody coming off of Sheridan. They're not looking. I think another stop sign there is just going to make them know the westbound traffic, or the people that are going eastbound are going to stop. They're just going to go through. And Abe, the blinking lights at Vulcan, I wish I didn't realize it was 24 hours prior for video, because I'll put my phone here on my chest. They don't stop anymore. They don't stop at all. They barely slow down and then they speed up. And to be uncomfortable when you're walking two dogs when people are passing you at 45 miles an hour, it's not good. I don't think the stop sign is the solution. A stoplight, I would be in favor of that, but just a stop sign where people are going to ignore it and then speed up as fast as they can to catch up, I already have enough of a problem getting out of my driveway. And now my son at 16 is driving. I got one daughter, at least 19, just went off to Cal Poly, so she's only home a few months that I have to worry about her pulling out. But I think putting this Band-Aid is not what we're asking for. I know it's not going to be popular with people that live on Sheridan, but they can go Euless, they can go different ways. I think it's really addressing and going back and to see what you guys did. Maybe you don't need to use the consulting firms. Maybe you guys are good enough that you can do it quicker, cheaper, and let's put in, we've got the buffers, let's put in the center lane, let's put in the lights if that's going to make a difference, and let's reduce the speed limit. 30 would be great. I'm seeing going 10 miles off on Saxony to get to 25 would make me feel even better. But if we're not enforcing it, if there's never any traffic enforcement, unfortunately there's no sheriffs here, but I'd love, hang out for an hour or two between the hours of 7 and 9 in the morning and see what Vulcan doesn't stop. And like I said, a light, but a real solution is what I think we need for a long term, especially with 40 homes across the street are being built right now and 72 apartments. That's at least 200 new drivers on that road. And if they're not stopping at Vulcan, they're not going to stop at Sheridan. So, like I said, I would love for you guys to meet me 7:40 tomorrow morning. I'll be walking. Thank you.
Okay, let's go on the Happy New Year, everybody. So I'm officially neutral on this proposition because there is no good solution. Everything's all over the board. Abe gave a nice rundown of the official thing, but let's give a different rundown. Going back to the hotel, we had a roundabout proposed, didn't go in. So then we put a stop sign at Vulcan, and then now we have a blinking stop sign at Vulcan. We put a traffic circle on Hillcrest. We put speed bumps on Sheridan. We took this traffic circle out. We put a green cone in the middle of Sheridan. We graded down the bumps on Sheridan. This is endless meddling. I feel like I'm in a scientific experiment, and we should be paid for this. And we just had Christmas. It's too bad we didn't have this meeting last year because you're dishing out stop signs and chicanes and stuff. This is another spot for Leucadia. This is good. I got to ask, what is the long-term plan for this intersection? This is a $15,000 fix. Is that the long term? I think we were talking about $1 million on those other two streets. And once again, we're going to get $15,000. I asked the council to integrate this project with the road or the walkway plans. And I also asked the council to claim the right of way on both sides of the lane to make this be plenty of room. Now, if this is just a Band-Aid solution, I get it, that's fine. How many more Band-Aids? Is the La Costa 48 going to get a stop sign too? Those brand new houses? These houses on Quill Gardens, they're the newer houses. They're very organized, I get it. And they're getting things done. So maybe these new houses will get stuff done. It's stated that this doesn't meet the CAMUTCD codes. We're going for it. Housing element stuff, we're afraid to oppose the state, but here we're opposing what the state guidelines are. It's very confusing again. This is a special meeting, so we'll try to keep it happy. I want to keep it like this. I think we need to really consider the long-term effects on all this stuff. Like I said, we mentioned this. I mentioned the green lines on Sheridan. Why is there green ones on Orpheus? La Costa is much more traveled than Coyle Gardens Drive. It's a gateway to the city. Coyle Gardens is internal to the city. I get that. That's popular. People mentioned the YMCA and the Coyle Gardens Park. How are they getting there? What's the percentage of people that are riding bikes? What's the proposed percentage? We do these light shows. People from all over the county and the state, they're not coming by bikes. Thank you again. Make the good decision. I'll see you next week.
Tom Bertolus?
All right, in the spirit, Happy New Year, everybody. Feel like we just had a love fest for the first two ones, and now we're not as lovey, but it's all good. So this is interesting. I live Carter, so I live in the other end of town, but definitely been through that intersection multiple times, and Abe and the staff, there's so many things to look at. The roundabout, well, not enough width. What can you do? So the gist of it for me is I support this as a near-term measure. I'd like to see something and then something better in the future. Looking at it, a couple of things come to mind. One, there's no crosswalk on the south side. Going east-west, I'd really like one there. Crosswalks have had a bit of an evolution over the past few decades. And around 2002, a researcher named Charlie Seguier from North Carolina came up with some research, and a lot of crosswalks across the country were removed. I know in this part of the country, a lot of intersections don't have crosswalks. It's very different in other parts of the country. Maybe a discussion for another time, but I think you can safely put a crosswalk there. Number two, and I know there's been conversations with emergency services, fire departments and whatnot, and they have concerns. What normally happens in other parts of the country is, obviously a speed cushion, this is probably too high speed of a roadway for that, but a raised intersection. And I know people get scared when they hear that. They think raised intersection, that's a big deal. But you can make them very gradual so they're friendly for emergency vehicles, for fire trucks. You can just have a nice gradual raised intersection. As we know, we had a young lady here talk about the fatality in Carlsbad from a woman on her bicycle. That was a stop, always stop into an intersection, right? So there's no guarantee a vehicle will stop at an always stop intersection. But if you combine that and you do a raised intersection, you have higher safety rates. So that's what I'd recommend in the long term. Obviously, that takes money, but crosswalk, raised intersection. Otherwise, great job. Hopefully, you can continue the Love Fest. Happy New Year. I'm so happy that you guys, City Council, Abe and his staff are doing so much great work. So thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
That does conclude speakers on this item.
Thank you. And I've been a strong advocate for an interim all-way stop control at this intersection for quite some time, and I want to emphasize the word interim. I do think that this is an example of a nail. This and the Vulcan intersection with La Costa Avenue are nails, and like Mark Twain said, the hammer of the roundabout should be brought down on these nails. So I am a strong believer in roundabouts in these intersections. Did I lose you on that? I did. Okay, well, Bruce got it, I think, but in the meantime, yeah. I am a hammer guy with the roundabouts. I have not seen a traffic problem that I didn't think could be solved with a roundabout. But in this particular case, we've got traffic issues, we've got speeding issues that are really, to me, don't allow us to wait to be able to put in a roundabout. So this interim step is important. I have a business client that I drive to their office regularly in Carlsbad, and so I use this route. Yesterday, I was at a one-way stop. I was westbound on La Costa Avenue, and there was someone that wanted to turn left onto Sheridan. So there were about 20 cars backed up waiting for that left turner because there were about 20 cars going eastbound on Lacoste Avenue. And that inability to meter that traffic is causing backups all over. And so to me, it is about creating a regular interval. Everybody stops, everybody. Now I get that sometimes traffic won't be there, and so you have cars that are stopping for no reason at all. That's one of the things that contributes to people running the stop sign, is that they don't see any reason why they should stop, and so they just keep going. I get all of that. But when it comes to busy times, when there is a lot of traffic, people taking their lives in their hands to turn left, to go west from Sheridan onto Lacoste Avenue, I felt bad for the person that was waiting there to do that when I finally got to go continue straight, because not only did they have to wait for all the eastbound traffic, but then once the left turn onto Sheridan and all the westbound traffic, and they had to just wait. Whereas if you have like Vulcan and Lacoste Avenue, just that constant meter, that constant flow, I think it works as an interim solution. So I have been a strong advocate for that, implementing that particular tool. With that, I will call on Deputy Mayor Blackwell.
I'm just going to continue the rant here. I think this is a good interim measure to consider, but I feel the frustration that Scott Campbell said is, we've been talking to the residents that live in what we're calling the Northwest Quad, which is the four roads of Lacoste, Vulcan, Sheridan, and Andrew. And the concern about traffic today, the concern about future traffic volume is very real, and we've tried a lot of different things, but it doesn't feel like we necessarily have a comprehensive plan. And so I do really want to encourage us, if we do an interim measure, not to stop at that, but to do a much better job at first with Lacoste to really make it a better road for the future. I think the speed is an issue. I know when we had the stop sign at Vulcan and Lacoste, it has helped. It has caused the ability to turn left when you need to turn left. I also know people ignore stop signs, and it's a concern. Now, Abe, there is not a flashing sign on the the eastbound side. I think it's just the westbound. Why is there not one on the eastbound side?
I think two reasons. One was the effect of that on the near residential property was very close, and I think they had windows to it. And the second was because of how close the bridge and the signal on 101 is at, we didn't think people would be building up that much speed to miss this, assuming they're missing it.
They do. They like to blow right through that one. But, and I understand if it caused a resident issue. It wouldn't be the same at Sheridan and Lacoste. If we had the blinking stop signs, it would not cause a resident interference issue?
No, because on the corner, let me pull up. On the corner, we have this site that's not developed on the
Greenhouses.
Yeah, the greenhouse. And also on the other side, I believe we have a tall fence, and then there's a Lacoste 48 development that's about to happen. So.
Okay, great. Well, in sum, I think this is important for us to do now, but look longer term and have a better plan. I think it was pointed out to me by Paul Rodino that Lacoste, there's several connecting roads between, along the I-5 to Vulcan and San Leo. And Lacoste is the only one that really doesn't have a lot of, shall we say, speed control, traffic mitigation, even sidewalks, right? It's just been kind of left behind. But with the volume of residents moving in there, with that road's going to get busier, and we need to do more. So I'll yield.
Councilmember Lyons.
Thank you. Just a few things to echo what Deputy Mayor Blackwell is saying and our mayor is saying. And we have given a lot of time and thought to improvements along Lacoste. It's really taken a lot of community input and our engineering staff and our planning and city council. We've heard a lot over the years, and yet we feel some reluctance to try something. And I almost feel as though it's become painful that we're not moving something forward, because safety is so important to the community. I think we have that in common, that we all feel the safety along Lacoste imperative to improve. And so I don't want to delay any longer to take a small step forward to improve the safety along La Costa. And so I enthusiastically want to support and move to support the staff's recommendation for this action.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Ehlers.
Okay, and let's see. So I support moving forward immediately with this always stop. And I wanted to talk a little bit and ask a question of staff about the future and having enough space to implement a roundabout for both northbound and southbound Sheridan on the north side and south side. And so my question to staff is, where do we need to be to have a future plan in place so that as these two developments, these two greenhouses, presumably they will develop into residential someday, but what do we have to have in place to basically be able to capture the right-of-way necessary for the roundabout?
So I guess trifold. So one piece is that, as you're aware, the current mobility element of the city, circulation element of the city, calls for a different cross-section for La Costa. At this moment of time, La Costa is a 4-lane road, 2-lane in each direction. Now, our mobility element update is in final stages. Soon, council will see the new version, and that would dictate the ultimate fate of La Costa, what it will be. Will it be a 4-lane, 3-laner road, 1 lane in each direction with a 2-way left turn lane? What kind of cross-section that will have? That would be pending council review and approval. In the meantime, like the development, the La Costa 48, when they came in, the other development that happened in La Costa, we had to work with the cross-section that we had on our existing circulation element. Because of the fact that we know La Costa is currently in level of service F, because of the high volume of traffic on it, limited capacity that it has, we conditioned the developers to create their road at as wide as they could on their side. I do have the most recent improvement plan from, I think this is from La Costa 48. As you can see here, they are widening on their side, dedicating as much as possible.
It's not sharing on the
sorry.
screen.
So they will be widening on their side, dedicating all the right-of-way that they should, adding a 2-way left turn lane that would help residents of their site on La Costa not to get into a situation that Mayor was just talking about. So if somebody's going eastbound, they want to get into these units, they wouldn't stop eastbound traffic. They would get out of the way, get into the 2-way left turn lane, and get out. Similarly, when they want to get into the site. Similarly, when they want to get out, they don't need to find gaps in both directions. They only need to find a gap in one direction. They get into the 2-way left turn lane, and they continue. When it gets to Sheridan, as you can see, a new left turn is added onto Sheridan for westbound. That will help a lot, obviously. Now, this stop sign will work with this current stop sign that we're talking about, will work with design. Now, to answer your question, Councilmember Ehlers, we have to know what our ultimate cross-section is to design a roundabout if we're going to build a future roundabout here. At this time, we do have different options, preliminary options from the consultant who did this study last year. We have two options. This one is a 75-footer. You can see there is some right-of-way acquisition required on the southwest corner, and then a realignment of the road. We need some on the southeast side. This is preliminary, and there is and this is a very small mini roundabout. This is smaller than El Portal even, and there is another version. This is closer to El Portal, and you can see to build something like this, pretty much a third of the property on the southwest would disappear, and also some on the north side. This is, to give you an idea, this is 105 feet diameter exterior. El Portal is about 100. So this is pretty much the same footprint as, but to build something like this, design is the easiest part. We have to obviously have the right-of-way. We have to have the ultimate cross-section of La Costa working for us, because we cannot have a one-laner La Costa coming to something like this. It wouldn't work.
So if the developer came in, let's talk on that southwest corner here with what you're showing. If the developer came in to do a project, and typically planning department has the ability to require dedicated right-of-way based on existing plans, roadway plans. Would we be in a position today to demand some dedication, maybe not as much as what you're showing right now, but to get maybe the smaller or somewhere in between? My question is, do we need to take additional action? I'm all for approving the stop sign tonight, getting the safety first, but I'm trying to make sure we also are taking the second step, which is put ourselves in place so that when we have these two developments go through the planning process, the planning department in conjunction with engineering has the ability to require dedication of street right-of-way. Maybe not like La Costa 48, which is a lot of extra lanes over there, but at least that would accommodate a traffic circle. And what I like about what you're showing right now, even though it takes a lot of land from the southwest, I like the fact that the traffic circle helps to mitigate the misalignment of North Sheridan and South Sheridan. And it would mitigate that problem and make it more, the traffic circle is a very good, I think what Tony said, it's a hammer and nail situation. This is exactly the type of place where a circle is almost perfect because you have that 15 to 25 foot offset between the two alignments. So what do we have to do?
Councilmember Ehlers, how about if this agenda item is about the always stop control, and you are raising some really good questions, and I think we should be having this conversation about the entire length of La Costa Avenue from Highway 101 to Interstate 5 with as much information about future development, current development, what there's room for. And so how about let's defer that to a fairly near meeting on that particular topic.
Okay, and the only reason I was asking is if we had something as simple as putting it in the resolution that this is the interim solution, that the ultimate solution would be we would investigate looking into that. Would that give us enough? Maybe that's the question I should have asked, simpler.
Yeah, I think that was, I don't have any problem putting it in the motion. We don't have a motion at this time. Oh, wait a minute,
Yes, I
Councilmember
moved.
Lyons did move, so we could modify the motion perhaps, and you could second it. But I think that, there has been a lot of talk about La Costa Avenue. We've talked too long. I agree that it's time to be taking some action. We know that we didn't get the grant that we were hoping for. You and I have walked La Costa Avenue and are looking to recover some right away so that we can have a sidewalk, a real sidewalk. And so I know Deputy Mayor Blackwell has also been spending a lot of time over there. So it is an important issue that we will have on an agenda soon.
Okay, so I'll second the motion if you don't have a second. And with what was the friendly amendment? I forget now.
That this is an interim solution.
Yeah, interim.
That this is an interim solution. Yeah, thank you.
I'll accept that friendly amendment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have anything more that you wanted to add?
No, I'll yield.
All right, Councilmember Hensy.
Thank you. I just wanted to bring up the question that Tom asked about a crosswalk. Is there the possibility to get a crosswalk at least east-west?
Oh yes, we should be able to add a crosswalk. We usually don't do crosswalks at our stop control intersection, but obviously this road being a classified high-speed road, we can certainly do it more along La Costa. I guess because Sheridan is, everybody's familiar with the stop sign on Sheridan, and they do stop mostly. But the reason we didn't add it here, because of the same concern of this being new, we didn't want to create that false sense of security for pedestrians crossing La Costa right after we post a stop sign and somebody's not familiar. We can certainly go back very soon after and add crosswalks on La Costa too.
So it'd be a separate project to add a crosswalk?
Yeah, we can add that. The design does allow for crosswalks on La Costa. It's just we didn't show it on the plan right now because, again, a new stop sign, people might miss it. And
Okay, so give folks a chance to learn about the stop sign
Exactly,
and then add the crosswalk. Okay, I'm fine with that. Thank you.
And I would add also, this issue of the mobility element, circulation element has been a real problem. And I did get an update that the EIR is going to be out draft here in a few months, and it's looking like council will be considering the proposed modifications to the circulation/mobility element probably in the fall. And so the only way we can really take steps to determine, what kind of road configuration this stretch will have is after we have finalized the mobility element. And I will add that while this council has generally unanimously supported changing the 4-lane designation to 2-lane, my understanding is that Carlsbad has some problems with that. So there may need to be some creative work done and collaboration with the city of Carlsbad to make sure that we're able to design this stretch of road the way that this community wants it to be. So there's that ahead. So we do have a motion and we have a second, and so I think we're ready to vote.
I just want to clarify, as an interim solution, is that just part of the motion, or did you want the resolution amended to include that wording?
I'm good with just the motion, but
In the motion, okay?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you.
Yes.
I'm good too, yeah.
Okay, we'll start voting. Councilmember Lyons?
Yes.
Councilmember Ehlers?
Yes.
Councilmember Hinsey?
Yes?
Deputy Mayor Blackwell?
Yes.
And Mayor Krantz?
yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you all. Appreciate the input, and I'm not used to Scott Campbell being neutral on anything. That's a little bit tough to take, but I'll try and adjust. We are now on to item number 4, which is consideration of a revised draft of a revised Encinitas traffic management program. And once again, it's Abe and his team, or Jill and her team.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, last item on the night, Encinitas traffic management program. I guess compared to the other items, relatively simpler. A little bit of history on this one. About 20 years ago, the original Encinitas Neighborhood Traffic Management Program, ENTMP, was drafted. City hired a consultant at that point. I think the program went in effect in 2017. The last version of the program that was available was 2017. The purpose of it was to establish a process of staff and community working together, implementing traffic calming measures and complete street features, different elements of design into different roadways. It was a very good program. A lot of different traffic calming measures were put in a toolbox with different examples, with different cost estimates, different applications. The first time it was applied was 1 or 2 years after in Cardiff area. I believe Rubenstein was the first one. Very good project, still in place, successful, very beautiful. However, after the first 2-3 years, there were hiccups and lots of bottleneck, mainly in the process of the program. There were lots of different steps, a lot of back and forth. The flow chart was very complicated. This is the flow chart of the program. As you can see, it's very, very sophisticated to get to a point where you can actually implement a program. A lot of residents were asking for stuff that did not need such a complicated process. It was a very low-hanging fruit type project, but because this was the only program in place, staff had to follow this. So very slowly, staff at the time less and less utilized this program. Council directed the staff to implement another program called, asked the staff to implement another program called First Tier. Basically, the idea was before even starting this ENTMP, we want to have something to give to residents. And the speed cushion program, the First Tier speed cushion program was initiated. This had its own flowchart process. Fortunately, I guess, or unfortunately, the program was so successful, the speed cushion program was so successful that the 10 years after it was all residents wanted, and nobody really got to a point where they needed to utilize the ENTMP program anymore and go beyond after the speed cushion program to utilize other measures in the toolbox. In recent years, the past 5 years we've been here, we created a lot of new policies, implementation of stop sign, implementation of sharrows, blinking stop sign, implementation of new crosswalks, mid-block crossings, RFBs, a lot of different policies, our street lighting policy. And we're utilizing all these different policies. We have also, similar to what we just talked, like Quill and Saxony and Vulcan and Neptune, and in a lot of different roads of the city, we've implemented measures that were already in the ENTMP, just with a different process. So with the direction that we got from Council and Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission, I think it was 2021, to revisit ENTMP, another one of the things that we, I guess, took on in-house, we didn't hire a consultant again. We did redraft the program. I don't want to call it a new program because we had a good program to work with. It's not like we did a whole new program. It's a revision of the old program. We dropped the neighborhood word. I didn't like the neighborhood. We're not really working with the neighborhood. We're traffic calming wherever it's needed. So the new name of the program is Encinitas Traffic Management Program. This is the new program that you've seen. It was attached to the council report. I'll just quickly go over what has changed. So we had a very complicated point-based system. We made it very simple. A resident doesn't have to go through different hoops to get the number of points. It's just a matter, do we have a speeding issue? Do we have a safety issue there? If we have it, then we got to take care of it. It's very simple to qualify. We do accept petitions from residents for local residential roadways that are unclassified or classified as a residential road, or streets that qualify. If their speeds are 25 or below, obviously they qualify. For roads that are more than 25, if they qualify as a business district or as a residential district, we do allow them to petition for traffic management. If a roadway is classified as a major road, as a collector road, and does not qualify as a residential district or a business district, we created this, I guess, option for council to authorize traffic calming. And in our current policy for our speed cushions, for our ENTMP, it only applied to residential roads. But we did add this option. So let's say we want to do traffic calming along 101, like we did this 3 years ago. Council provided us direction. We implemented those as speed tables. Currently, engineering department is not authorized to implement traffic calming on classified roads, but this option is there for council. The program has 3 tiers. First tier is new now. We now have educate with our new mobility manager in-house. We have a lot more opportunities to shoot for education, connecting with the residents, with the communities. We also have a very good relationship with our sheriff's office. So we want to start with a short window of education and enforcement to see if we can resolve the situation without creating a project. Obviously, if it's going to work with just education and enforcement, it would be a lot better. We have, after 3 months, we have a monitoring process that we check if the measures that were implemented were effective. If not effective, if we still have a speeding issue, safety concerns, Tier 2 starts. Our Tier 2 are simpler, I guess, lower hanging fruit type improvements that we can add. I'll mention them in the next slide. Speed legends on the ground, additional signage, stop signs if they're warranted, speed radar feedback signs, speed cushions, stuff like that. And the third tier would be the more cost prohibitive items, stuff like the mini roundabouts, like the chicanes that we just talked about. These items, due to our funding concerns, the program calls for them to be added to the department's annual work plan and be blessed and approved by council for potential funding requirements. We cannot promise these to residents because we do not have funding for a chicane. Even if a road qualifies or there's a good design for it, we cannot do it until it's added to our work plan. We can design it, and then the funding is approved by council. All the new policies that the past 5-6 years that we created for the city are incorporated. The crosswalk policy, sharrows, blinking stop signs, the speed radars, new crosswalks, RFBs, all these. As mentioned, the third-tier projects would need to be added to the work plan. City council has to approve them. We don't want to go spend time and energy on designing something that will cost the city $300,000 before making sure council is on board. So we don't want to spend money on the design, efforts for design, if it's not supported by council. That's only for the third tier. If the first tier and second tier don't work, that's where we come to council with our work plan item. Each tier, as mentioned, there are studies, provisions in the program that would tell us if the program was successful or if we should still continue adding more and more measures. And the success of the program, similar to the first one, there's no point-based system. If we lower the speed enough, that satisfies us that the program is successful. And these are the measures that I mentioned earlier: education enforcement for first tier, speed limit signs, speed limit legends, shadow markings, pedestrian crossings, radar feedback signs, new stop signs if warranted, and lastly, speed cushions and a speed table. So our first tier speed cushion program is now the last step of our second tier, to make it a little bit more complicated for council. And tier 3 is, I said, the more complicated measures and more cost prohibitive measures of our ETMP. This is the program with the 3 different tiers. Each tier, we have a checkbox. Did we lower the speed limit? If we lower the speed limit, lower the 85th percentile, the program is considered complete and successful. With that, I'm open to questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any public speakers?
Yes, we do. We have 2.
All right.
We do have 2 speakers, Michael von Neumann, followed by Tom Bertolus.
Hello again. Michael von Neumann, East Encinitas, and I'm in support of the revision of this manual. I think it's good to have guidelines. I think it helps plan into the future. It gives people an idea of what's important to the city of Encinitas. A lot of times, though, the devil is in the details, and I have one item that I just want to mention that I think is a little too subjective. I think it needs to be a little more objective, and that concerns Sherrill policies. It's 5.4, and in number 2 and number 4 under that, there is reference to whether Sherrills are implemented or not based on an opinion that it would give a false sense of security to a cyclist, to either put it or not, to put them in. It would give a false sense of security. I think that's pretty darn subjective. There is one particular roadway that I have in mind that meets all the other qualifications for a Sherrill. But, saying, I don't know what that means, false sense of security. I ride a bicycle. I'm never secure on a road. I have no false senses whatsoever. So I think maybe it's just a little too subjective, and it should be taken out of that. That's all. But all in all, I think it's a great plan and a great revision. I especially like the elimination of point systems and things like that. Thank you.
Tom.
Tom?
Tom, you're getting your money's worth here at this meeting tonight.
I hope I'm getting my money's worth. Happy New Year, in case I forgot to say that. So I support this, 4 for 4, right? Support everything. What can I say about this? I mostly am interested in what next generation, what's going to happen next time. So I read through what was written and said, it's very complicated now, let's make it less complicated. Great, I support making something less complicated. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and back then, imagine if someone said modern roundabout, on Rubenstein and Santa Fe, it's just, it's mind-blowing, right? So what's going to happen 20, 30 years from now? Well, the city in the United States that has the most innovative traffic calming policy right now is the city of Boston. 6 days ago, they just made a major announcement. They're no longer going to do a reactive traffic calming policy, like the rest of the country. If there's a speed issue, there's some other issue, they're going to do it proactive. They're just going to put speed humps across the city. You can look on their LinkedIn page from 6 days ago. 1,500 speed humps across the city of Boston on over 80 miles of roadways. pretty amazing. And the speed humps there are 3 inches high and about 12 to 14 feet long, so they're pretty gentle. I did read through the packet, and there was a line in there that said fire engines come to a complete stop when they come to a speed hump. I mean, imagine 14 feet. Michael's not quite 14 feet away, but not far, but 3 inches over 14 feet. I mean, if it does that, that's about 2%. I know there's probably a table at the top. So they're gentle for fire departments. And so I guess my only request is 2.0 or 3.0, this is great for today, but the next time we redo our traffic calming policy in the city of Encinitas, and we are on the forefront in the county, I would say. I'm pretty impressed with Encinitas. Let's be proactive and let's just put traffic calming measures, especially speed humps, which are considered the gold standard, across the city of Encinitas to really bring down our speeds, and speed tables on our larger streets. I know Highway 101 actually has, I think I counted 5 of those speed tables, and I'm very impressed with that. Anyway, that would be my request. Thank you so much to this amazing city council, and Jill and Ian and Abe, and Happy New Year.
Thank you. So I read this, and I think overall it's, good to update it. I really appreciate the work you've done on the flow chart. The flow chart in the original book was an absolute nightmare, and you have definitely cleaned that up. I think that I object to taking my picture out of the book. You've done that. My picture was in the old book. I'm not in the new book. But I can understand why you did that. So, but I have a question. As I was reading this, I saw the second tier, on page 7 of the book itself, it says second tier measures included, and it goes down and it's got different things that are included in the second tier, and one of them says new stop signs, and it says per policy. And I can't find the policy for new stop signs in the book. Where is that?
So, I guess we could have incorporated that. Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission, we did have a City of Encinitas stop sign policy when I started, which was different. That one was also point-based system. I think you had to score 20 points or something to get a stop sign. But with a consultation with the Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission, that was rescinded, and now we follow MUTCD guidelines as a policy. So there's no standalone City of Encinitas. Our policy that was approved by commission, and I believe we brought it to council 4 or 5 years ago too, but it's basically MUTCD guidelines.
Well, I think that to me, you don't want to reference per policy, and then in the back of the book you have, section 5.1. It says, section 5. Traffic management policies, and it goes 5.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It does talk about flashing stop signs, but not stop signs. And so, that inconsistency, and it's less of an engineering and a traffic issue and more of a writing issue, So to me, I don't know if there's anything about this particular document and this update, this draft, that we need to adopt it now, but I would volunteer to work with staff and one of my colleagues as a kind of a subcommittee to go through this and try and create a little more consistency within the document, so that when we refer to a constituent, a resident of the city, to this book, they can work through this book to know what they're supposed to do, because there is no clue about where they're supposed to go if they want to put in a stop sign that I can find.
Makes
and maybe
sense.
You'll show me if we do this. So that would be my motion at this point, is that we receive the draft, and that a council member join me as a subcommittee to work with you to create a little more internal consistencies in the document.
Sure.
There were also some sections, some paragraphs from the other book that I actually think are helpful to the residents of the city to be able to read, and so there are some other complete streets comments that I think would be better to have in the book. So, Councilmember Lyons. I did make that motion. I don't know if I could get a second for that.
Right, yeah, I will second that. Thank you, Mayor. I think this is a wonderful step. This is great. I loved all the great options you showed, and you really captured what we've done in the past and how we can move forward to be more effective. So wonderful first draft. I do want to say, Tom's still in the room, so I do want to call out the intersection table because that is really cool, just the raised intersection, and I think that's what you were mentioning on La Costa. But it's just one example of great things that we can do. So thank you for that. Mayor Kranz, I do agree with you as far as the policy and kind of tightening things up. So that's why I did second it, and I look forward to the work that's done to move it forward. The one area that I do want to call out, ironically, is the same thing that Michael called out, because as I was reading through the policy on page 65, which is the Sharrow's policy, I did note, and I am concerned with the way we're approaching the undefined nature of when a Sharrow could be used and when it can't. There are some metrics here about the pros and cons of where a Sharrow could be used, but then we are also saying at the discretion of the city traffic engineer. And so it makes it really hard for other people to understand. I think it's hard in a policy document like this to say, yes, this, and they're very specific, but we've got this discretion here of the city engineer. I would prefer to see us, if we have issues with where Sharrows should be and shouldn't be, that we articulate more specifically what that issue might be. Like, for instance, is it a site visibility issue? When you're talking about create a false sense of security, is it because the site visibility is blocked? Or is it because it's a downhill or uphill grade? Or is it because there's curves in the road? And what degree of curve would be then not appropriate for a Sharrow? I would prefer us to keep our metrics kind of equivalent throughout the whole document and not defer to at the traffic engineer's discretion. It puts a lot of burden on you or any future traffic engineer to call out. It's kind of almost like a default that lends to us being too conservative when we might not need to be. So I would like to see that section worked on a little bit, and that's my only comment.
Okay, Councilmember Ehlers.
Unmute there.
Yes.
I support the motion on the table. I really appreciate the added review and, of course, trying to make it. And I also support what's being done here because I remember back when we first adopted in 2005, the original one, it was a big step forward. And I think the integration that's taking place here that Abe has done in structure is very good. It's trying to get everything in one place. But as with any major update or significant update, there are issues. I don't have, because I'm out of town, out of country, I haven't gone through in the level of detail I would have liked to. So if you're looking for any volunteers, I would happily volunteer to help on the subcommittee, but I'll defer to whatever you want to do.
Everybody just stepped back and left you out front, so you're it.
Okay. And I'll yield.
Okay, and I think a couple other subjects that we ought to talk about as we're looking at this draft there are two things. One is the role that the fire department plays in traffic calming requests, and that's a very sensitive subject because their analysis is generally based upon fire emergency response times, and so there's a definite tension between emergency response times and making it safer by slowing people down. So there's that. And the other issue to me is making sure, while I appreciate that you're the trained traffic engineer and that it is important that the initial analysis go through you, I do recognize that the five of us are accountable to the voters, and so having a way for this constituent, this resident to take the issue to the council, I think is one that we should work through. I don't want to see every request that you say, no, we're not going to do that, come to the council, obviously, but what process do we have in place? Are you the final arbiter, or are there other alternatives? So it's one of the things that I'd like to talk a little bit more about. Councilmember Hensy.
Thank you. I was just going to say that I really like the suggestion that Tom brought forward, that if we were proactive and just putting traffic calming everywhere, that we might not even have a need for the residents to be asking us for it. So I think it's worthwhile that we contemplate that if it comes up in our strategic budgeting session next time, or if it's an item that perhaps the infrastructure task force should be tackling as like citywide traffic calming. I think that it totally makes sense where we're going in the future, because, you know, we can take this manual, spend a lot of staff time, energy, community building around traffic calming for every pocket of the city, but it's our stated goal that we want to bring speeds down to 35 citywide, basically. And so I know there's places it needs to be even lower, but how do we attack that from really the policy level, and that we don't have to say, you know, every time that there's a Band-Aid, we put it on there. But in the meantime, I think there's a need for this. There's one other thing I wanted to mention. Oh, yeah, maybe there is a resolution in how Tom describes it, between the tension that you describe of the fire department denying some of these requests or not being open to traffic calming, and perhaps it really is just a longer speed hump that's not as high. And when you, Abe, put the speed humps on Highway 101, that was so revolutionary, and it has totally changed the way that people use that road. So I really like this idea. Thanks, Tom, for bringing that forward. But I do think that should be contemplated either in a future policy discussion or in the subcommittee's work, or perhaps in the other venues that I mentioned.
And Bruce was actually the first one that volunteered. I should have made sure that none of the three of you wanted to volunteer for the opportunity. You're okay with letting Bruce do it, myself? Okay. So I think that's it. And we can vote. Actually, yes, okay. Do you understand the motion?
Yep, it was to receive the draft Encinitas Traffic Management Program to replace the old Encinitas Neighborhood Management Program, and to appoint Mayor Kranz and Councilmember Ehlers to a council subcommittee to work with staff in finalizing the document.
Okay.
We'll start voting. Councilmember Lyons?
Yes.
Councilmember Ehlers?
Yes.
Councilmember Hensy?
Yes?
Deputy Mayor Blackwell?
Yes.
And Mayor Kranz?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to the adjournment of this special meeting, and I would like to adjourn it in honor of the longtime 20-year chef Luis Lugo of the Best One Pizza House. Best One Pizza Parlor in Cardiff has been there since 1965. It was a treat when I was a kid to be able to go to Best One and have pizza. Quarter family started it, and really built up a great business. It's had some different owners since then. Luis Primo Lugo has made delicious food for Best One Pizza House customers for 2 decades. And he's remembered for his kindness, warmth, and strong work ethic. And there is a link to a GoFundMe in the Coast News article about Luis Lugo. And tonight I'd like to adjourn this meeting in his honor.